Majesty. Melania and I are deeply grateful to you and Queen Camilla for your extraordinary graciousness. And to William and Kate, thank you so much. It's been so great being with you today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's a singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. The phrase special relationship, seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice. We're joined by history and fate, and by love and language. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be with you.
Security remains the cornerstone of this special relationship. We have the deepest, most advanced defense relationship in the world.
As I said last night, the bond between our countries is like no other anywhere in the world. The United States and the United Kingdom have done more good on this planet than any two nations in human history.
We are working together to end the humanitarian catastrophe in the Middle East.
The one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good morning. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell here with you until 1 o'clock. We're talking to some of the top people in British politics today. The Shadow Foreign Secretary, Priti Patel, will be with us a little bit later on in the programme, as will Sarah Pochin from Reform UK. We're asking the question this morning, why can't we deport foreign criminals? Violent migrants who face deportation are still in the UK, still committing crimes. This is a scandal of our failing system. Big spread in The Sun on Sunday today. We've been talking about it with Mark Dolan. Thomas Godfrey's been talking about it from The Sun in a minute or two ago. Also, Gaza's reconstruction, what's going to happen there. The hostages coming back, hopefully, in the next couple of days. We'll actually talk to someone who is very annoyed that a Hamas terrorist is being released, the person who attacked her. It's a very moving story. Later on, we'll get expert analysis, too, from Edmund Fitton-Brown, who's one of my favourite analysts on the Middle East. There's so much happening there. It is the biggest story in the world at the moment. Here, we can feel the effects. Anti-Semitism is a huge story still, and in fact, there's a council in London, I'll let you guess which one, where they're putting all sorts of hatred, anti-hatred. They want to be against things like ableism, things like being against transgenderism, all sorts of issues. But the one they've left off their list, anti-Semitism. I wonder which one it is. Yeah, you've guessed it correctly. It is Tower Hamlets Council. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk to Tony Smith, the former head of the Border Force, and on the debate desk today, Phil Dave and Maxwell Marlowe will chew through all the news. As always, we want to get your voice on the air. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Remember, voice notes less than a minute, please. Do send them in. Let us know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. You can also ring me on that number or send me a WhatsApp text message. Always good to hear from you, and make sure you get your voice on the air between now and 1 o'clock, whatever your opinion is. 0344 499 1000. Lots to discuss between now and 1 o'clock. Make your voice heard here on Talk. Well, Bridget Phillipson is the Education Secretary. We did ask her on the programme today. She just didn't get back to us, basically. She's been talking about Gaza. She's been talking about Hamas and what she thinks their role, if any, should be. She spoke to Sky News earlier today. This is what the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, said.
Are clear that a terrorist organisation like Hamas, that was responsible for the most deadly atrocity, the largest killing of Jews since the Holocaust, can have no part in the reconstruction of Gaza or in a future Palestinian state. But that is not just the view of our government, that is the view of Arab states as well.
What about the view of the Palestinians, the Gazans themselves? They may decide they want Hamas.
I'm afraid when you look at the appalling atrocities of the 7th of October, there can be absolutely no place for a vile terrorist group like Hamas.
Well, I totally agree with Bridget Phillipson. The problem is that if you have a Palestinian state, which Keir Starmer has recognised, well, what are you then going to do? You're going to have democracy? And if you have democracy, what if people vote for Hamas? We'll get into all of that later on, not with Bridget Phillipson, but with Priti Patel, who is the Shadow Foreign Secretary. She'll be joining us a little bit later on. In the meantime, I want to talk about this huge story in The Sun on Sunday today. Shock state of Britain's failing criminal system. Some of these people have been deported, but still in Britain and still committing crimes. Violent migrants who face deportation still in the UK, still committing crimes. They're committing murders, rapes and break-ins across Britain after being let back onto our streets. This is a Sun on Sunday probe exposing a rogue gallery of offenders who've committed further crimes after release, including some far more serious than the things that they were initially banged up for. One example, a migrant, Jason Furtado, jailed for life for murdering a schoolboy, even though he's supposed to have been deported 9 years ago after serving time for theft and motoring offences. Well, Tony Smith is with us. He's the former head of UK Border Force. Tony, this just shows yet again, does it not, the outrageous, ridiculous system that is simply not working. We have no grip on this. We have no control.
Yeah, morning, Peter. There's a couple of things here, and they have been getting worse in recent years, actually. Firstly, as we've discussed just before, lack of detention accommodation, lack of prison spaces means that the Home Office are under pressure to deport people earlier, to create prison spaces in the system. And the second is this ridiculous legal framework, Peter, that when the Home Office do want to deport somebody, they have to serve them with a notice of intention to deport them. And then you get this...
Bit of a giveaway. If you get a notice for intention to deport, how many of those people then say, ooh, I'll definitely be packing my bags and doing every single thing the Home Office tells me and getting off the shores because what I want to do is completely comply with the law at all times?
Yeah, backed up by an army of lawyers.
Yeah,
quite
of course.
Legally aided lawyers who know exactly how to play this game and will say, well, actually, my client has got a real problem with you sending him back to Jamaica or Angola because it would be a breach of his human rights because he'll face inhuman or degrading treatment. Now, we can reject that and we can refuse that, but then they get a right of appeal, Peter. And we said the other day, the appeals backlog is over a year now in Justice. In fact, Justice have never prioritised immigration or deportation appeals. They've got other things on their plate that they want to do. So we've got a failing legal framework, Peter, and we've got a failing detention framework, and we need to fix both of those things. We need to say to somebody that if you're going to be deported from this country, you will stay detained, and we will keep you in detention, and we need legal powers to enable us to keep you in detention. We can have court hearings in detention. We did that when I ran the detained fast track system in UKBA. We can have hearings, and we can do all of that while you're detained. We're not going to give you bail. The moment we give you bail, and you've just shown me a couple of cases that's been reported about people that get bail and then go on to commit further offences. So we must keep them detained, and we must curtail this system where a notice of intention to deport versus a detention order does not take 2 years, it takes a couple of days.
Is this about political will? Is this about a system that's broken? Is this about money? I mean, if you were advising the Home Secretary and the Justice Secretary about this, what would you sat them down, what would you say? How would you sort of fix this, properly sort it out?
Well, I think you guys do a good job in highlighting this. It clearly is a matter of public concern, and I think we are seeing changes now, aren't we, in the polls, with parties that are saying, well, that's what we're going to do. You've seen a big turnaround from the Conservatives last week. Reform have been saying this from the start, and people are saying, well, we had enough of this. And that's really what what's going to get the ministers going, is that actually, we do need a radical change, not just playing around at the edges, but a radical change in our thinking, our legal framework, all the ECHR arguments, Peter, that are around now. That's what's needed, actually. But I think it is political will, actually. I think it does come down to, have you got a Home Secretary, have you got a Prime Minister that's going to say, right, OK, we're going to detain all illegal immigrants and all foreign deportees. We're going to invest in that. We're going to build new prisons and we're going to deport them all. And I haven't seen that really anywhere. And they have to start planning this now. I mean, you've got to start building these things now, not waiting for another 3 years. So I think largely it's political will and ambition. And I haven't really seen that actually start to consolidate itself into a project plan that would mean that by the time we have a next election, this won't be happening anymore, because we'll have a new legal framework very, very quickly. Obviously, it'll take them a while to pass the legislation, but within a year, say, we'll have a load more prisons, a load more detention spaces, and there won't be any barriers against removal anymore. That's what's needed. But I think ultimately, Peter, it does come down to political will, yeah.
Well, it's interesting with political will because we have Lord Hermer, who I believe is the most dangerous man in government, the Attorney General, human rights lawyer. He's represented Gerry Adams. He's wanted Shamima Begum back in this country. He has said that the ECHR will never be left by this country. A former human rights lawyer, Keir Starmer, says the same thing. Is it just the ECHR? I mean, there are many aspects, as you've correctly outlined there, but getting out of the ECHR in some form would presumably help.
Yes, it would certainly help.
But I suppose the point is that it's unlikely under this government anyway, although Reform UK and indeed now the Conservatives have said that they would withdraw from at least some of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think this government will withdraw from it, Peter, if I'm brutally honest, from what I've seen them saying.
Yeah, well, they've said they won't, yeah.
You know, got a human rights lawyer in number 10. You've got a human rights lawyer as the Attorney General. I mean, a lot of their votes came from this army, really, of people that quite often batter me on Twitter to say it's outrageous that I should be suggesting such a thing, that, you know, human rights should be disapplied for foreign nationals. But I think that's what most people want. People coming into this country either illegally or people coming into this country should not benefit from human rights legislation or from the Torture Convention or from the Asylum Convention. But they do, Peter. And I'm afraid it's a huge litigation that we find ourselves in. Of course, the Home Office is going to always get beaten up. I mean, I got beaten up regularly when I was in the Home Office, not fit for purpose and all that sort of stuff. But people, I think, do need to understand that we do refuse these people and we do want to remove them.
On that note, Tony, what would you say to Jason in the Lake District who's been in touch? He says, why aren't hundreds of Home Office staff being sacked for being incompetent? This is a national emergency and the same people who are responsible for this mess are still in their jobs with no doubt favourable pensions. It's beyond comprehension. What would you say to Jason in regard to that?
Well, I don't know if there's any Home Office people listening to your programme, but I mean, I was one of them for a long time. You expect to get it in the net, Peter, because it's really hard to explain how this system works. But I did refuse a lot of people. I did deport a lot of people. I did detain a lot of people, and I had a target to do all of that. That was a very, very clear mandate to me. And when I retired, actually, we were removing quite a lot of people. Still, no border is perfect, Peter. But yeah, I can understand why people are angry at the Home Office. But let's have a look at the system that they cannot breach the law. They have to work within the law. You can't put the Home Secretary in contempt of court if you're a civil servant. And so we really needed, and it's only since I've retired I've had to come out and try and explain this, that you really need a fundamental change in the law. And, you know, it's not necessarily within the gift of a Home Office, a caseworker or an immigration officer. When
you see political forces agreeing with a lot of what you've said this morning, do you have hope, Tony, that this can be sorted? It sounds as from what you're saying, I'm not asking you to be party political, of course, but it doesn't sound from what you're saying that this can be sorted under Labour, certainly if they stay within the ECHR. Do you have hope that other political parties, maybe the Conservatives, Reform UK, whoever gets in after the next election, looks like Reform if the polls are to be believed, can actually sort this out, it can be done, and that we can take back control, quite literally?
It can be done, Peter, but I mean, we've got, what, three and a half years?
Yeah.
Or we get an election. They'll take a while. They're going to need to appoint ministers. They're going to need special advisors. They're going to have to overcome the House of Lords, which is always a huge blocker to removals. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, but I think they're going to need to start planning that now in anticipation of getting in, because 3 years will soon go by and we'll find a new government and they won't be able to do it quick enough for the people that voted for them. So that's the problem. I mean, time is not on our side, I'm afraid. And I'm afraid we're going to probably have these conversations for the next 2 or 3 years, Peter, because as I say, I don't think this government have really got the political will to change things very much.
Tony, thank you. That is Tony Smith there, former head of UK Border Force, speaking to us. Thanks to Sharon, who has sent me a message on WhatsApp and says British prison is for British prisoners, not for foreign prisoners. This is being paid for by the taxpayers. We need to stop dishing out legal aid to these lawyers. If they want to represent these immigrants, well, do it out of your own expenses, not taxpayers, says Sharon. Plenty more thoughts on this in regard to Priti Patel. If you have any thoughts on what I should be asking her, do send them in. I'm always open to ideas. I am not the finished product when it comes to interviewing, and if you have ideas or thoughts on what should be discussed, you let me know. Mary's in Hemel Hempstead has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Mary, you're very welcome to the programme. What do you make of this story?
Well, I'm very sad, actually. But I can't understand. Obviously, this government has got none of the political will, so they won't do anything about it. And I don't understand why. But I don't understand why they can't, whoever it is who has the political will, if it be reform or whatever, change the law so that people are only allowed one appeal. The appeals after, like, sometimes you hear 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, you're right. And what often happens, Mary, is that the Home Office don't send their staff to those appeals, or, as we were hearing from Thomas Godfrey earlier, they don't have enough interpreters for these people who, you know, can somehow make it in the UK and can somehow converse, but then when it comes to the trials and comes to the appeals, well, they actually need a translator. Translators aren't available, judge throws it out, case closed.
But I understood there was electronic devices that do translate.
Well, there are, and there are also a lot of people who speak absolutely fine English who nonetheless ask for translators in court to make a point and also to think because they think the appeal can be rejected.
That's right, yes, I've heard that before, yes, that they can speak English but then pretend they can't.
Yeah. Mary, what's the solution? What do we do?
Change the law, reduce the wages that the legal aid lawyers get, and I wonder how so many would be applying to become legal aid lawyers if they got a reduced fee.
Do you not think they need to be paid for their work? Do you not think a fair day's work for a fair day's pay? Maybe it's not a fair day's pay. Maybe it's not a fair day's work.
It just seems to me very strange that so many people are jumping on the legal aid lawyers program, studying law purposely for this because it's so well paid, and I just feel that one doesn't go with the other. You know, they should.
Sure.
All right.
Okay, well, Mary, listen, thanks very much. That's Mary in Hemel Hempstead. There's give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. You can do the same thing. Get your voice on the air between now and 1 o'clock or send me a voice note on the same number. Jane says, please could you ask your MP guest when the Prime Minister is going to be held accountable for all these scandals? He avoids scrutiny, never answers questions. And one person says, good to see you this morning. Thank you. That's Sharon. This government could deport these dangerous immigrants if they wanted other countries to do it, but obviously the government doesn't want to. Ashton says, no, I'll read that out later on. Dan in Kent says, morning Peter, I look at life like a bicycle. Capitalism is taking the stabilisers off and enjoying the freedom, but expect the bruises along the way, and socialism is keeping the stabilisers on. That's an interesting thought from M there, from Dan in Kent. Have a good one, Cardi P. Thank you, Dan, much appreciated. And Steve says, here's an interesting thought, Peter, and I genuinely don't believe it's beyond the bounds of possibility. How long before one of these clown councils like Tower Hamlets starts suggesting their own Islamic independence, says Steve? Well, do you know what? That is something I'm actually quite worried about. We're going to talk about flags and anti-Semitism and all of that a bit later on. Actually, Leslie says the two victims of the Manchester atrocity would be alive today if the perpetrator had not been given bail on a rape charge. That is factually correct. So, Leslie, thank you very much indeed for that. Phil, Dave and Maxwell Marlowe are standing by to be on the debate desk. We're going to ask them the question that we're asking you this morning. Why can't we deport foreign criminals? What do you think of that? What do you think of that idea? Everything else we're talking about today up for debate between now and 1 o'clock. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Debate desk coming up in just a second here on Talk.
So nobody told you before you got on the bus you can't wear a football shirt to drive the bus? When you got back to the depot, was that when they fired you or what?
On Monday morning, they sent an email over, my agency did.
Right.
They sent an email saying regarding the events on Saturday the 4th of October,
right,
we'll be dismissing you due to a uniform policy. The video has circulated all over social media.
So, what, a few million people have seen this now?
I didn't think it would go so big, but it's quite a surreal experience, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who has been in touch, including Les, who says Tony Smith mentioned there is no perfect border. Perhaps the internal border between Mexico and the USA could be copied. I'm sure Donald Trump and JD Vance could advise the tactics in closing the UK open border of both the Labour and Conservatives, who are both as guilty as charged of making a fool of the British electorate. That is what Les has said on Twitter. He's tweeted me at talkTV. He's also followed me at Peter Cardwell. Why can't we deport foreign criminals? Let us know your thoughts, just as Les has done. Also, some questions coming in for Priti Patel. Angela has said, my question for Priti Patel, does she now regret using hotels to house illegal migrants, as her legacy regarding this lives on with taxpayers and local residents are the losers? I will certainly take that into consideration, Angela, speaking to Priti Patel, the Shadow Foreign Secretary, a bit later on. She also says, I'm enjoying my coffee whilst looking forward to your show. Very concerned regarding the story regarding prisoners not being deported, as reported in The Sun. To think that crimes could have been prevented makes it even worse. Well, Angela, fear not, we're going to discuss that more now on the debate desk. Phil Dave, the broadcaster, is with us. Hello, Phil. Good morning.
Good morning, Peter.
And Maxwell Marlowe, Director of Public Affairs at the Adam Smith Institute, with us again. Hello.
Good morning, Peter.
Maxwell, I cannot continue this conversation without asking you about your art purchase this week at Conservative Party conference. This is a painting of Javier Milei. Tell us about this and why on earth you bought it.
Well, I bought it because I kind of felt sorry for the artist because he wasn't having any attention at his stand, and I quite like Javier Milei. I'm a big fan of afuera, which means get rid. So I put in a bid, £200, the floor price.
£200? Yeah,
it's worth £2,000. So
is it though?
No, not really. No. But yeah, I brought it back, and my flatmate said it's not going in the living room, so it's in my room now. So
right. Okay.
I think it's wonderful personally. But
does your flatmate have good taste?
She has wonderful taste.
Well, maybe not in flatmates. Anyway, specifically, I mean, Javier Milei, I'm sure, would have a lot of sympathy with what Tony Smith was saying there, and indeed what the Sun on Sunday is reporting here. The shock state of Britain's failing criminal system. People who were deported but still in Britain and still committing crimes. Phil, your thoughts on all of this?
Where do you even start? It's just such an insult to the law-abiding public, and how on earth can you look at it any other way? What I would say is that I don't think it's as black and white as soon as someone who happens to be a foreign criminal is released from prison that you then send them back. Unfortunately, there are various laws that stand in the way that basically obstruct us from doing so, whether they be international law, which for some reason this country sticks to the letter, unlike other countries that clearly ignore it. And I'm not referring to anyone in the Middle East, by the way, before anyone starts saying anything. But
well, you know, Italy, Germany, we've done it as well under David Cameron. The European Court of Human Rights said we've got to give prisoners the vote. He said, no, we're not doing that. And was there any consequence? Absolutely not.
Well, what are you going to do? You're going to put a whole country in prison? I mean, it's an agreement. That's all international law is an agreement between nations. However, put that to one side for the moment, because let's look at our domestic laws that stand in the way as well. There are various human rights laws that we, to some degree, rightly have, but I would argue that human rights should only apply when others consider other people's human rights. And my concern is that someone who is prepared to break the law on whatever criminal charge does not necessarily consider the human rights of the victims.
Well, certainly,
involved.
if you're a murderer and they say, oh, I have a right to a family life, I have to stay in the country under the European Convention of Human Rights. Well, what about the family life of the person you've murdered? Maxwell, where do you stand on all of this?
I mean, just to point out from what Les said, who texted you earlier about the Home Office copying the Mexico border. Under Chris Philp, when he was Home Office Minister, they were considering putting sonic disruptors in on the border to push people away. When it comes to people staying in the country, though, I think the big it's just totally baffling. I think it all comes down to the ECHR and the new legal class. So since since the Supreme Court judgment over Brexit, the kind of legal class have come across this idea that they are the new executive. They can decide what fundamentally happens. So it was only since that point that we stopped deporting people fundamentally who had committed these crimes. But there's also the case a lot of countries don't want to take these people back. There was
I wonder why.
Exactly. Well, the Albanians quite recently said they don't want to take a lot of people back because guess what? They deported they basically sent all their criminals to the UK to go and deal drugs and other horrible crimes, and they just go, no, you can keep them there, thank you. In your cells, they're out of the way.
Some of the detail in all of this as well, some of these examples, a Jamaican, Ernesto Elliott, 2020 deportation for knife crime was derailed by a last-minute human rights appeal. The 47-year-old came to the UK in 2003, was spared removal despite racking up 17 criminal convictions, including possession of an imitation gun. His removal from the UK was cancelled, and 6 months later, in June 2022, he and his son killed a 35-year-old in a knife fight in Greenwich in East London. They also stole drugs and cash from the victim, and they were jailed for life. In another case, a Ugandan rapist who had been recommended for deportation by a judge was released into the community and then tried to rape a pensioner in a similar crime. He'd been jailed for life for raping a young woman in 2008. He was freed in 2018 and then freed from an immigration removal centre in 2021, even though there was no legal barrier to his deportation. I mean, this is just this article in The Sun on Sunday. They're just example after example after example of people who have shown us, have demonstrated, have told us through their actions that they shouldn't be in this country. I'm not talking about people who come here and contribute to the economy and do the right thing. I'm talking about people who do not do the right thing, who shouldn't be here in the first place. We can deport them, and we don't.
And what makes it even more of an insult above everything else is if them carrying out their crimes when actually those crimes, as you rightly say, probably didn't need to happen in the first place because they didn't necessarily need to be here. What makes it even more of an insult is it costs the taxpayers. How much money do we as taxpayers spend on these
millions,
reprehensible individuals? And furthermore, all we keep getting told is our bills are going up because the cost of living and the taxes need to go up because we've got so many billions of black holes.
After the break, we'll look at some of the detail of the numbers here. Brits have paid migrants overall, not just the ones who've broken the law, £74 million to leave the country since 2021. 2025 seems to go over the average last year's total of 22.4 million. So this year alone, 2025, we're looking at 21.5 million handed to migrants in the first 6 months. So back to the desk in a minute or two, but I just want to bring you some breaking news before. A woman has been murdered after the deaths of 2 children in Stafford. According to Staffordshire Police, police were called to a home at about 7:30 on Sunday by West Midlands Ambulance Service, a home in Stafford. 2 children pronounced dead at the scene. 43-year-old woman from the Stafford area has been arrested on suspicion of murder and remains in custody. So that is the breaking news this morning. We've just received it here at Talk that a woman has been arrested on suspicion of murder after the deaths of 2 children in Stafford. If there is any development on that between now and 1 o'clock, of course, we will bring it to you. Lots more to discuss on the debate desk after the break. Get your call in as well. If you want to talk to Maxwell and Phil and me about anything we're talking about between now and 11 when the debate desk ends, or indeed between now and 1 o'clock, do give me a shout. 0344 499 1000. Why can't we get a grip on immigration? Why can't we just deport these foreign criminals? Why can't we take back control as we were told we could nearly 10 years ago now in the Brexit debate? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About the criminals, let's talk a little bit more about the money in general. There is fury as £74 million of taxpayers' cash has been paid to migrants leaving the UK. This is since 2021, figures showing. This just goes on and on and on. Last year, £22.4 million was spent on cash handouts under the voluntary return scheme. If it's voluntary, why do we need to pay these people? 2025 looks set to go over that total, with nearly £21.5 million handed to migrants in the first 6 months alone. So nearly the full total for last year was done in 6 months. Phil, just talk us through this. I mean, this is illegal immigrants eligible for cards loaded up with £3,000 to be spent in their home country. People who shouldn't be here in the first place. We're saying go back to your own country, or maybe you've overstayed your visa. By the way, here's some cash.
Yeah, well, I think that the way we need to look at this slightly, as much as I completely understand why on earth should we pay anyone for being here illegally and then sending them back, or sort of, you know, as you say, volunteering them, or them volunteering to go back, why should we pay them? I think we need to look at it slightly differently and say that if they stay here indefinitely, it will cost us an awful lot more in the long run. So as much as I completely understand it's an abhorrent amount of money that we are chucking at people who probably shouldn't be here in the first place, the upshot is that if we carry on maintaining the status quo, it will cost us even more in the long run.
So you think this actually might be a good investment to get rid of at least some people?
I think that if it does at least encourage some to return to their country of origin after they are blatantly not contributing anything here, like we've said before the break, I'll make it very clear as well. You know, I would be nothing but a hypocrite if I started sort of having a go at someone who's trying to make a better life for them and actually contributes to the economy. That's exactly what my ancestors did, and they, if I say so myself, did it quite successfully here. So I certainly wouldn't want to disrespect anyone who's doing that. But what I do disrespect is someone who thinks they're going to get an easy ride. So if they're going to just cost the taxpayers an awful lot more money in the long run, I'm personally in favour of trying to encourage them to go off their own back.
Maxwell?
I mean, I partially agree. I mean, just to put those numbers into specifics, the Boris wave who came over under Prime Minister Johnson, they will cost us about £300 billion a year in lifetime benefit spending, right? So this is a small fee.
Is this actually a bargain?
It could be, but at the same time, look who it's eligible for: people who overstayed their visa. Now, if I stayed here in you know, the news building after I'm not allowed here anymore, and I just sat up here at Talk, and the security guards came along and they said, "What are you doing here? We'll give you some money to go." I don't think that would wash. I'd probably be dragged out and banned for life. I don't see why we can't do that.
I mean, okay, well, it's a good point. I mean, actually, we have a lot of people who, and these returns as well. I mean, Keir Starmer loves talking about returns and saying we've returned so many thousand people. He said 35,000, something like that. Most of those people are people who've overstayed their visa. You get an email from the Home Office saying, if you don't, you've overstayed your visa, we know where you are, we know where you live. If you don't return in the next month or two, you know, there will be consequences. And then, you know, whoever it is says, oh right, okay, fair enough, I'll you know, off I go. That is not the same as removing a foreign criminal, for example. And incentivising people. I mean, there are loads of people in this country who would love £3,000. I mean, that's 10 winter fuel allowances for people who would say, actually, the money should stay here in the UK. So what do you make of that argument?
I mean,
or is this a good deal?
I do agree. I think fundamentally it lessens the cost on the government overall to remove these people, because you've got to organise the flights, you've got to send the people around, you've got to do all the admin. I mean, this is why we're getting digital ID being brought in. Well, hopefully not, but because actually the Home Office doesn't know where anyone is.
And unsurprisingly, with digital ID, Keir Starmer, you know, shock horror. Oh no, it'll only be used for this one thing. Actually, guess what? That fell apart in a few weeks' time. Do you know, I've spoken to a load of people in the political scene who say it'll never happen because they're just not organised enough.
No.
Phil?
Well, furthermore, I'd also remind people that income tax was only ever supposed to be temporary. Never forget that.
Yeah.
The upshot is that I completely agree that anyone in their right mind would say that, of course, this money could be better spent in this country. Of course it could. But unfortunately, successive governments have blatantly lost control of the migration issue in the UK, and something needs to be done to sort it. And all we know is that carrying on maintaining the same way is not going to help change anything, because it hasn't changed it. We've seen it only ever get worse. So one way or another, we are going to end up having to spend an awful lot of money solving this problem. I don't know necessarily what the answer is. I know what I'd like to be the answer, but unfortunately people have said it's a bit too extreme, so for now I'll reserve judgment. The point being is that if this is a way to encourage at least some who the Home Office have maybe lost track over, come forward and say, OK, yes, if you're going to give me £3,000, I'll go home, maybe that's not a terrible thing.
Just some more on that breaking news. We have an update on what's happened in Stafford. The detective inspector leading the case, Kirsty Oldfield, she's asked people not to speculate after the deaths of 2 children in Stafford. This is after a woman has been arrested on suspicion of murder. 2 children dead in Stafford. She's a 43-year-old woman from the Stafford area, arrested on suspicion of murder. She remains in custody. The detective inspector said, we are working hard to understand more about what happened leading up to these 2 children tragically losing their lives. We ask that people do not speculate at this stage, as it is distressing for family and friends and could hinder our inquiries. We understand that this incident may cause concern in the local community. We don't believe there is a wider threat to the public at this time. A cordon is currently in place at the home in Stafford. So just a little update on that story. I want to talk now about something one of my colleagues did, actually, Samara Gill, who is obviously a broadcaster on this station as well. She appears on various programmes, including What Just Happened, and has presented on the station too. She went out on the streets of London yesterday and challenged someone who had an ISIS flag. Let's take a look at this.
A flag for the Islamic State right near Westminster. I mean, we've had a terrorist attack in the past few weeks, and now we have someone wielding an Islamic State flag. Modern Britain confirmed that that flag there is a flag for jihad, so we're going to go have a look and ask them why they would fly that flag. I mean, there's the Palestinian flag and then there's the jihad flag. 2 very different things. It's a very interesting flag. What does it mean?
Declaration of faith. Basically, it means there's no God but Allah, and his prophet is Muhammad. That's it.
It looks a lot like the jihad flag to me.
Nah, it's just a declaration of faith. That's it.
It's the Saudi flag, but it's just black.
Why are you here today at the protest?
We're here to show the government they need to cut ties with Israel, and we want no more. We want Palestine to be free.
Free from what?
Free from Israel.
The troops have come out just a couple days ago, so it is effectively free now, would you?
Yeah, it is, but obviously the original whole land, even where Israel is now, that was all Palestine's land anyways. So you want the land back.
Right, okay, so where are those Jews going to go?
Where they came from. They went to Palestine. There was somewhere else before.
Where were they?
On the history. I'm not too educated on the history. I'll be honest. But obviously, speak to someone older that knows the history. I'm not too educated on it. But all I know is Palestinians are getting killed right now, and yeah. So we're here to...
So you're happy for the Jews to be removed from Israel?
I'm very happy for that to happen.
Okay, and how would you want that to happen?
God knows, innit? I don't really know.
Interesting flag. That's the jihad flag, and he's just also called for the obliteration of all Jewish people. That's what's going on in the streets of the UK.
Samara Gill there reporting. Really, really shocking. Young man there blatantly carrying a terrorist flag on the streets of London, or what appears to be a terrorist flag, and calling for the destruction of Israel and for the Jews to go back where they came from. Maxwell.
I'm lost for words, really. I mean, the startling ignorance of that person, but also how the police haven't arrested him, because, I mean, we've seen this thing about people going, the quote, I support Palestine action, people being herded into vans, hundreds of them, and yet you can walk down Whitehall with a flag which has literally killed British citizens and soldiers, and, you know, you're a free citizen to do so. I think that's absolutely baffling. I'm really lost for words, actually.
There's so many errors in what he says as well. There are historical errors, I mean, it's the flag of Saudi Arabia, it's just black. That's factually wrong. Phil?
Oh, where do I even start with this? I mean, I don't actually think it's a wonder that people question why Jewish people are scared to be in this country at the moment, when you've got morons like that take to the streets and openly fly the flag of jihad. Look, let's put it this way. I think that it's not a major shock that someone that young is so frankly dumb about the situation, because there has been an awful lot of propaganda churned out there, whether it be on other news outlets, whether it's been on social media, So I sort of understand it from the sense that he's obviously seen one side of an argument and thought, oh, those nasty Israelis, they're killing Palestinians, and doesn't completely understand the history of it. I mean, he even said himself, he doesn't know the history, and therefore you probably speak to someone who's better educated on it. What I do find really staggering is that how weak and lily-livered there are people in this country who are allegedly authority. Look at someone like Samara, who I know that she would have had someone possibly operating camera with her, but that would have been it. That would have been her and someone operating the camera, going out on the streets and confronting these lunatics. And I think that sort of, I mean, if I didn't have respect for Samara before, I have even more respect for her now. The bravery she demonstrated.
She's actually just been in touch to say, I've been messaging her saying we're using her video on air, and she says the police did nothing. He was walking up and down constantly. I guess the problem was it wasn't an English flag.
Yeah, totally and utterly. I mean, look, the bravery that she's demonstrated, if more people actually demonstrated that, then we probably wouldn't have the situation.
But there are even people, I mean, good for Samara, but there are even people who, you know, there was a man who was told by the police that he was being blatantly Jewish. He was being openly Jewish, and by standing beside one of these protests. And why the protests are even happening in the first place. There are people saying ceasefire now, end the genocide. Factually not a genocide. Well, guess what? It's ending.
The mask is off. I mean, yeah, we could see this with some of the announcements made by the organisers, which is that a ceasefire isn't enough. And it's like, well, you've been calling for a ceasefire for 2 years
we know why it's not enough
exactly.
don't we?
We heard from him. The Jews need to go back to where they came from. They're literally the people of Judea, which is that area. So I just don't really understand, you know, well, I do understand now exactly what they're going for here, but, you know, it is this sort of, right, lily-livered morons who just seem to think that foreign policy is so easy.
I wonder how he would feel because it would appear to me that the chap who appeared in that video, and I could be wrong about this and I'm prepared to be corrected, but certainly at surface value, it would appear as though maybe that he had some ancestry that wasn't necessarily born in the UK. And if that is indeed the case, I wonder how he would feel about being told that you've lived here for however many years, but we don't want you here now, so you go back to where you come from.
We don't know, but he may well have been born here.
No, I'm saying I'm sure he was.
Like many people who live in Israel, but go back to where you come from.
Exactly my point. Many Israelis were born in Israel. That's a country that's 80 years old. The vast majority of the population there now were probably born there. But my argument is exactly the same with him. If he had ancestors who came over here, goodness only knows what the reasons, and let's not forget the reason why a lot of people fled to Israel is because of the knock-on effect of the Second World War. How would he feel if people turned to him and said that, I don't care if you were born here, you go back to where you came from? Don't think he'd like it very much.
Just on the Israeli point, Elon Levy, who's a former spokesman for the State of Israel, has tweeted this morning after Bridget Phillipson, who says we've played a key role behind the scenes in shaping this. I would love to have talked to her this morning. Elon says it's really embarrassing to watch the British government scramble to take credit for the ceasefire agreement. It did nothing but actively sabotage the talks. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the White House are no doubt absolutely livid with the government and Europeans in general for recognising Palestine whilst all these background talks going on, led by the State Department in the US. So I don't see how the government can kind of scrape some sort of credit for this. You know, their fingerprints are all on the wrong areas.
Well, not to mention that you can't recognise somewhere that doesn't exist, but anyway.
Yeah, there's a brilliant tweet. There's a Titania McGrath. I don't know if you follow Titania McGrath, who is a satirical tweeter. I'm going to find the tweet and read it out to you after the break, about people saying essentially we want a ceasefire, just not one that's been arranged by Donald Trump. Thank you very much. What this person says,
out of nerves.
Please don't name me on air. I won't do that. Could you ask Dame Priti Patel if she became Foreign Secretary, would she withdraw recognition of Palestine if a stable government was not in place by that time? I certainly will be asking her about Palestine recognition. Sharon says British prisoners for Oh, I read that out earlier. Another person says, why is it so difficult to come by unofficial boat without papers? You've entered illegally, therefore deport without appeal. Amanda says on foreign criminals don't and won't get deported because of the brain-numbing and blinding self-righteousness which has hindered all rationality. He will regret this spiteful decision. Sean Marshall in Kidderminster says, good morning Peter, good morning Sean. I chuckle when Labour won't put a member of their party on your show. You can guarantee if they were in opposition they'd be falling over themselves to get the publicity. Great show as always, says Sean. Listen, I don't dislike Bridget Phillipson at all. I actually want to hear from her. I want to hear what she has to say, and hopefully we'll be able to do that the next time. There's also Titania McGrath's tweet has been found by my fantastic production team. This is a satirical tweet. This is not serious, I should say. It's done by a very good comedian who said, "My friends and I have been out all day protesting against the ceasefire. We demand a ceasefire that wasn't arranged by Donald Trump. We will never give up the struggle for peace," which I thought was very funny. Lots more to discuss with Phil and Maxwell here on the debate desk, and let us know your thoughts as well. 0344 499 1000. Your party leader, Kemi Badenoch, called Nigel Farage's politics Corbynism with a union flag. Do you disagree with
Nigel's a Thatcherite. You know, he was a member of the Conservative Party. He's certainly not left-wing, and he's not a socialist. And anyone that says that, I'm afraid that isn't correct. I've known him a long time, and I know absolutely he's not like that. And I think that all these insults backwards and forwards have to stop. At the end of the day, our country should come first. And if it means working together with like-minded parties to rescue Britain from this far-left government, we should put our country first rather than party advantage.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who has been in touch, including Max in Somerset, who says the human rights lawyers who represent convicted criminals can't have any integrity when they represent them for appeals, knowing they could put the strain on our overstretched services, roads and water supplies. That is Max in Somerset. Thank you for that. Thanks also to a person who's been in touch on Twitter. He says a teen carrying a terrorist flag in London says, "I'm not educated on this matter." No kidding, but you have been indoctrinated. We're going to talk more about that as the show goes on. That's Samara Gill and her report from central London yesterday. I want to take a call now. We're on the debate desk, I should say, with Phil, Dave and Maxwell Marlowe. Matthew is in Bolton. Matthew, you're very welcome to the programme, not just with me, but with Maxwell and Phil as well. What would you like to say this morning?
Yes, far too much common sense being spoken on here. Peter.
It'll never catch on.
And I don't want to spoil your show, but I am actually in Jihadi Central, aren't I, being in Bolton, unfortunately. This is where the recent arrests have been made.
Is that how it feels?
No, it's not how it feels. The recent arrests were made in Falmouth.
Okay, well, we'll not get into that because we don't want to prejudice any legal cases or anything, but no, that is a factual point as far as I'm aware. Matthew, tell me your thoughts on the human rights ideas, the ideas about foreign criminals being deported, what we're discussing this morning.
Well, human rights, Peter, as you've fortunately cover on your show, and a lot of talk presenters do, the rights of the British natives, whether they be English, Welsh, Scottish, Irish, you can put whatever label you want on it. Let's put the native stroke citizens. We seem to be at the bottom of the list. Everybody else, every other group, every other nationality every other, let's say, invader who's imported or getting in illegally or legal, they seem to have far more rights than us. But the problem is, and it's a big problem, two-tier Kia is the poster boy for human rights lawyers.
What human rights are important? What human rights should we have, Matthew, or should it just be about shifting the focus for human rights for people from this country to have the right to live in freedom, for example, the right to a family life that doesn't involve foreign criminals who should be deported carrying out further crimes that destroy families?
I know you're trying to expand on the human rights, but excuses are not human rights. You know, the chicken, was it the chicken from...
The chicken nuggets.
The chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
I mean, are we really saying that's a human right?
Well, it's not, especially many of the chicken nuggets I've had are more of a human wrong. I must say, are a chicken wrong. Matthew, stay where you are just for a second. I promise I'll come back to you. Just stay on the line with someone who dropped off the line yesterday. Stay on the line, Matthew. I'll go to Phil and Maxwell, ask their opinion, and then I'll come back to you, Matthew. Maxwell first.
I think we need to return to the Bill of Rights, which we had in the 1600s, which is actually one of the pieces of fundamental constitutional law that set up most of what we would recognise now as Western civilization. And for decades we've been adding all this stuff on, and it just seems to be just turning our lives into misery. So I don't disagree at all with Matthew when it seems that a lot of people who've come into this country do seem to have, and I think it does seem to be a much easier ride of things than people who were born here. And I think it's an interesting insight, and one that I think the government are very aware of, especially with reform surging in the polls at the moment.
I don't like laws, any rules actually, that don't apply to everybody equally. It's different when it's, pensioners have some rules in regard to pensions. Obviously, people under 18, different bits of the law apply to them. That's fair enough. But when it comes to sort of adults above the age of 18, the law has to be the same for everybody. Phil, what do you make of what Matthew is saying there?
So you're right, the law has to apply to everybody, but I believe that sort of the law can only be in favour of those who adhere to the law. And this is where I think it goes horribly wrong, is, to my mind, human rights should be more designed for people who are decent, law-abiding citizens.
Human responsibilities.
Quite. And in my humble opinion, is that I believe that if you are going to have a blatant disregard for the law, if you're going to carry out some sort of criminal act, whether it be, and I think we should stress that technically speaking, although we refer to it as illegal migration, coming into the country illegally, as we call it, is actually not illegal. In order to claim asylum, one has to be on the land. That is what law states. One has to be on the land in order to claim that asylum. Where it's technically, I believe, illegal is when they start sort of taking gross advantage of maybe some of the...
So I think arriving in this country since 2023 has been illegal. So I think we'll maybe check that point.
But anyway, the point I'm trying to make at one way or another, right, is let's just say someone has categorically broken the law. They have been prosecuted for breaking the law. To my mind, human rights should not be on their side. It's not fair, it's not right, there's no sense to it at all.
Matthew, what do you think?
Not sure about it's not illegal to enter the country.
I'm pretty sure it is. I think since 2023 there's been a law against it, but we'll check that. Matthew, what do you think of...
Then?
Sorry, go ahead.
Why have we got passports then, if that's the case? We don't need a passport, do we? Regarding digital ID, Peter, human rights, most people have already got digital ID, and the Indian citizens did not vote for it, as Mr. Starmer was trying to tell us this week. They had it implemented. Now, again, that's a completely different representation he's made, and I would say that's a lie he's carried out. So I just wanted to cover that. I know it's separate to your...
No, sure. You're very welcome to make that point, Matthew.
Rights.
Yeah, absolutely.
Human rights topic.
Well, it's all related, and thank you for it. That's Matthew and Bolton there. I appreciate you giving me a ring. You can do the same thing, 0344 499 1000. Plenty of time to get your point on the air between now and 1 o'clock. And Matt and Hove has sent me a message to say when a British citizen commits a crime in a foreign country and they want to deport him back to England, how come we never say no? But the other way around, the foreign country says no, we are such mugs and a laughing stock, says Matt. Let's talk about something else, actually, which is the royal family, and the front page of The Sun on Sunday and another paper as well. Exclusive Andrew Bombshell emailed Epstein when he said he had cut ties. Day after Virginia Giuffre pic emerged, Duke told him, "We're in this together." This is Prince Andrew telling his pedo pal Jeffrey Epstein, "We're in this together," in an email. 3 months after the date he said he had severed contact with the disgraced financier. This is the day after the infamous photo emerged of him and his accuser, Virginia Giuffre. We're all very familiar with that photo of him with his arm around Virginia Giuffre, which he says isn't a real photo. I mean, it was, frankly. Let's talk to Maxwell about this. What do you think?
The disgraced Duke. I mean, he just needs to go to ground now. I think the British people have had enough of hearing about him. I've had enough.
It just keeps coming, doesn't it? There's just
unbelievable
lie after lie.
Yeah, and he just can't help himself. And you know, he's still living under Crown expenses. He's still got his nice mansion. He should not be back, fundamentally. I think it's a total disgrace.
Phil?
In a nutshell, I think that what is more insulting is the way that sort of people like Prince Andrew try and treat the British public as stupid. We've mentioned this time and time again on this station. It's mainly MPs who do this. But Prince Andrew clearly thinks that people will fall for his lies, and this is what I find even more of an insult. We all make mistakes. I don't necessarily think I've made a mistake to quite the degree that he has, but at the same time I think everyone does make them. But then to try and cover them up and to claim that you are actually you're just trying to wriggle out of it when blatantly it was a problem, that to me is more of an insult.
The other big topic that we're discussing on the debate desk is whether people who work for the Adam Smith Institute are paid too much money. What do you think about this? 0344 499 1000. Let's have the picture of Maxwell Marlowe, our friend here on the programme, who's on the debate desk, with his picture of Xavier Millet there. That is a painting that he paid, what, 200 quid for? Yes. £200 for that piece of artwork. It is a very colourful, jazzy piece of artwork. What sort of drew you to it?
Sorry, that's the set of Des O'Connor tonight. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's the Italian futuristic colour. I mean, my room is quite. I live in what I would call, my room at least, is a male living space. I've got my computer,
man cave.
My man cave. I've got my computer, my PlayStation, my clothes, my bed.
PlayStation.
I've got a PlayStation. Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 25. But the thing is that's now pride of place on my wall, and I think it's brilliant. And whenever I do a show with Julia and we're talking about, you know, what needs to be done to the welfare state, I do just put my thumb up and I go, look at what would Javier do.
There he is with his chainsaw. The person behind you is
our new economist, Mitchell, who was very unimpressed.
Giving a slightly sceptical look. I think you've been giving a bit of slightly sceptical look to this as well, Phil.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I can appreciate art as much as the next person. It's just I struggle with art that I need sunglasses to admire.
Yes. At least not modern art, which of course is art with a capital F. Thank you very much indeed to Maxwell Marlowe and indeed Phil. Dave Maxwell is Director of Public Affairs at the Adam Smith Institute, and apparently he just has 200 quid to pay on a painting. Phil Dave is the broadcaster here and valued member of staff here at Talk as well. Thank you so much to everybody who has been in touch as well. Leslie says, the Afghani man found guilty of death threats against Nigel Farage. There are doubts he can be deported after serving a sentence. Well, he absolutely should be deported. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. Priti Patel is coming up next, the shadow foreign secretary. We'll talk to her. Loads of people getting in touch with lots of different ideas. I'm going to go through those during the news and I'll ask as many of those questions as I can during the course of the interview. So stay with us here on Talk.
We've been talking this morning about a new theme park which is going to be built. The Universal Studios apparently are going to build it in Bedfordshire. We've been asking many of you to give us some ideas for theme parks. Alison in South Wales says in the new theme park at 5 p.m. every day they could have the PIP parade. All the people driving their brand new Motability cars.
Instead of the water rapids, you can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going around that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth at this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a £5 in a pot and you can go in and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed, and very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the Parks Hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. What about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike. Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park, narrated by Angela Rayner. Says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. But they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide rides surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed Whack the Rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it the channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine the scouts to say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour ghost train.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's go straight to central London and the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Priti Patel, joining us here on Talk. Good morning, Priti.
Good morning, Peter. I hope you're well.
Yes, very well, thank you. Let's talk about your area, of course, foreign affairs. The biggest story in the world at the moment is the ceasefire that is happening. Let's hope those hostages get back safe and sound. We've heard from Bridget Phillipson, who's also talking to the media this morning, that she thinks that Keir Starmer should take a bow for his role in this process. Do you think he should?
Keir Starmer's been a national embarrassment and a national disgrace on this whole issue. There's nothing that he can claim credit for when it comes to what we're seeing in the Middle East. I think, Peter, let's just take a step back, first of all. We're at the very early stages of this peace agreement, only phase one, where we will see hostages being released, having been held in brutal captivity for over 730 days. Keir Starmer has not contributed to their release whatsoever. He was too busy following foreign policy advice from his backbenchers and driving this whole two-state recognition issue rather than actually working with any country or government in the region or even working alongside the United States of America to find a peaceful solution to this situation. So I think it's just extraordinary for a government minister to make that type of claim and assertion. This is only phase one. I think we are in a very difficult stage right now. Hamas will need to disarm. They're going to have to put down their weapons. We do not know what that's going to look like. We also know that tomorrow there'll be a lot of prisoners, Hamas prisoners being released from prison, the very people that were responsible for many of the atrocities that we've seen in the Middle East and even on October the 7th. And I think this is going to be a very, very difficult few days. But what we do want to see is hope in the future, not the type of hatred that we've seen for the last 2 years. And I think it's important that, if nothing else, over the next few days, international leaders come together and they start coming up with tangible and realistic solutions that can bring a lasting peace to the Middle East.
I want to talk about some of that hatred here in the UK in just a minute, but before I do, who should run Gaza and who should run any Palestinian territory or state? Because my fear is that if we move towards a Palestinian state or some form of democracy within there, and that's desirable to some degree, that the Gazan people or the Palestinian people more generally vote back in Hamas or some version of them as they did in 2006. Do you share that fear?
I mean, yes, look, Peter, we've got to be realistic. We really have, which is why I'm going to be very cautious about, degrees of optimism and all the rest of it right now. This is just too early. And this is why Keir Starmer and the Labour government were so wrong to call for the recognition of Palestine without any concrete proposals around governance.
If you were Foreign Secretary, Priti, sorry to interrupt you. If you were Foreign Secretary, would you go back on that decision? We have a listener asking this question. Ask Dame Priti Patel, if she became Foreign Secretary, would she withdraw recognition of Palestine if a stable government was not in place by that time?
So I can't answer that right now because of where we are at. But you've asked an important question about governance, and I do want to answer this. The governance has to come from the region, and it's got to come from many of these countries in the Middle East. So this is the point about the talks that are taking place. America has done the convening. We need our friends, and they are our friends, the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Qataris, for everyone to come together to find solutions around governance. We cannot have a rerun of the Palestinian Authority coming in, then collapsing after we give them millions upon millions of pounds, and then letting Hamas come in. We also know that we are seeing around the world the axis of authoritarianism, the likes of Russia and China trying to destabilise governments around the world. We need some ownership from the region, and that's why this is important the next few days and weeks, to come up with the structures of governance. That's what we need. We need stable governance, and that's not going to be, you can't put that on a piece of paper and say, right, that's done. This will have to literally, investment will have to come in. I know the World Bank have got plans in place that they want to put forward. Money will have to come through from, many of the Middle Eastern countries.
Should Tony Blair be involved?
I can't tell you what this is going to look like. Well, there's been a lot of speculation about Tony Blair, and what I would say about Tony Blair is that I think we have to ask some serious questions about his suitability to be involved in this, whether or not he has any conflicts of interest. I actually did write to Keir Starmer a few weeks ago when this was first mooted, and again to see, what role Britain has had in this, and whether or not this is the right way forward, because I think even Tony Blair has to stand up to a degree of scrutiny about his own suitability for such a role.
We have had one of our reporters went out on the streets of London yesterday to Whitehall in central London. You know it well, of course, Priti. And there was a man there carrying an ISIS flag. He was completely unencumbered by the police. They didn't arrest him. She interviewed him, our reporter interviewed him, and he said that he wanted Jews to, as he put it, go home, and the territory to be given back, as he put it, to the Palestinian people. What is clear is that there is a lot of anti-Semitism on our streets. We've seen from the Community Security Trust and others that incidents of anti-Semitism are very high in this country. We've seen the horrendous Manchester attack. How do we get a grip on this?
I mean, look, that's just overt racism, that really is. And there's no place in the streets of London for anybody to behave in that way and express those views. I would also say there's just prejudice and ignorance there with those types of remarks. What should happen now, basically? I've spoken about hope and not hatred. How has it come to the situation where the streets of our city, our capital city, are just dominated by so much hatred? We should not be tolerating that. We live in a free society, in a free country, where people can express their views, but not tolerating racism. That is simply wrong. And quite frankly, I want to see the police stop these protests now. These have been going on for over 2 years. They drain the police when it comes to resourcing. They just act as a divisive means for just spouting more racism. They've got to stop, and I just think the government should be intervening.
How should we stop them? Because, of course, the freedom of expression...
I think the police have to be... I know that, Peter, but this is beyond the freedom of expression. I saw people chanting racism yesterday on the streets of London. That is just not acceptable. Police have powers. We had the police in bill. I was Home Secretary. We have powers that the police have. The police should be able to say no.
Okay.
And quite frankly, the police do use powers, to stop protests in other forms and guises and to stop them going to different parts of our city. Use the law, use the legislation, and just get these protests now off our streets. They're divisive and they're causing tensions, they're causing divisions in our country, and I want to see that stop.
Coming from Northern Ireland, Priti, I'm well aware parades can be stopped at various points. We have another viewer, Mac in Glasgow, who says we are giving terrorists a free passage in this country. We don't check, it's even more dangerous. We're letting these people live free in the community. Can you ask Priti Patel why we can't build detention centres for illegal foreign immigrants in this country? It's no coincidence that there's more racial and religious crime happening now. We also see in The Sun on Sunday the story about violent migrants who face deportation still in the UK, still committing crimes, even though they should have been deported. You were Home Secretary, you know about this. What can and should be done?
I do, and of course, I'm sorry to say this, for your viewers, I was the Home Secretary that did propose and put forward actual processes to build detention and reception centres, so these people would not be housed in our communities and would not be on our streets. And of course, those plans, for various reasons, as we know, with changes in government, never materialised. I do believe we need more reception and detention centres. These people should not be living in our communities, and we should also be enacting the laws that I put in place, the legislation that I put on the statute books, where you can detain people and deport them, and you have fast-track detained proposals in place. So the powers are all there, the legislation is all there, and the government needs to get a backbone and start removing people and building these detention centres.
Both as Home Secretary and now as Shadow Foreign Secretary, you'll be very well aware of the threat from China. I know many of your party colleagues have been sanctioned by China, people like Ian Duncan Smith, for example. There is a growing story in regard to a prosecution that did not go ahead of 2 parliamentary researchers. There are questions about Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor. What should happen here? Because we're not getting clear answers from the government. What is your take on it, Peter Patel?
So look, I think the government are lying, quite frankly. You've read all the newspapers. Journalists seem to have more information about what has happened, who said what, and the role of this National Security Advisor, Mr. Powell, Jonathan Powell, who, by the way, is a political appointee. So the man that oversees the national security coordination in our country is a political appointee, which is just extraordinary. He's not accountable to anyone. He's not elected. So I suggest that this scrutiny-shirking government comes to Parliament tomorrow and they account and they honestly tell Parliament who knew what and what the role of Jonathan Powell has been in all of this, because there are a lot of journalists writing about this, and the journalists seem to know much more than government ministers seem to know about this.
Will the Conservatives be submitting an urgent question tomorrow?
We'll be doing everything that we need to do to hold the government to account and make sure that they are subject to the scrutiny that they deserve to be in Parliament tomorrow.
Conservative Party conference was, of course, in Manchester this week. We have another question from a viewer. This is Rob, who says, can you ask Priti Patel if the Tories are wiped out at next year's local elections, should Kemi Badenoch resign?
No, that's a ridiculous assertion. It really is, because we fight for every vote around the country. You're speaking to someone that's been a long-standing member of the Conservative Party for 35 years.
You're tanking in the polls, though, Priti.
Every single election. So at the same time, that means we have to go out there and fight even harder, Peter, and that's what Conservatives do. We have to win back the trust and confidence of the British people, and people like me, Kemi Badenoch and my party will continue to do all of that. That's what we are here to do. And by the way, we do this because we care. We care about our country, we care about the future of our country, and I and my colleagues will be communicating that around the country during the local election campaign.
Is Kemi Badenoch doing a good job, or would a certain P. Patel perhaps do a better one?
No, this isn't about anybody else. Kemi is the leader of my party. She successfully won a leadership contest. She is being successful leading and uniting my party. And I actually was very proud of her when she delivered her speech at party conference. She spoke with passion and conviction, and she articulated in very clear ways Conservative principles, but also Conservative solutions to the challenges that this country faces. She's doing an absolutely solid job in terms of rebuilding the reputation of my party all over again. And by the way, Peter, you know how hard this is. You've been in government yourself. None of this stuff is easy, and quite frankly, we're the only ones prepared to do the hard graft to ensure that we can actually get back to winning ways. But we can only do that by rebuilding trust and confidence with the British public, and I, Kemi and my colleagues are working hard to do that.
Just finally, before you go, Priti, I just wonder, there's a final point on digital IDs. There are a lot of people very worried about this. Originally, we were told they were not going to be used for more than very narrow purposes. As night follows day, Keir Starmer says actually there are more things they could be used for. What's your take on this? Are you against them?
Well, I think, first of all, I'm absolutely against him. I think it's an absolute disgrace and a scandal. He seems to be following the playbook of his friends in the Chinese Communist Party right now. This, for him, is all about state control, and that's why we will campaign to stop this, and I would urge the British public as well to, make their views clear about this. Britain is a very free country. We don't believe in having our liberties encroached upon in this particular way, and I think it's an absolute terrible idea by this Labour government, and quite frankly, we've got a government that wants to take away more and more of our freedoms every single day, and we will stand against that.
Dame Priti Patel, Shadow Foreign Secretary, thanks for joining us on Talk this morning. Appreciate your time. That is Dame Priti Patel. What do you think of that? What do you think of what she said? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. On the point on Gaza, the very first question I asked her about Keir Starmer, I think Jackie in Dorset has some thoughts about that. Jackie, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, hello, Bonnie lad.
Hello there.
Right. The question I've got to ask is, why is Keir Starmer going out to Egypt about the Gaza thing? Because he's just inflamed it all.
He wants to take a bow. He wants to say that his role in the peace process has been incredibly important. I don't think it's been important at all. I actually think it's been counterproductive. What do you think, Jackie?
No, I'll tell you what. His role in the peace process, he needs some slap therapy.
Well, I don't know about shock therapy, but who do you think should take? Who do you think should take credit, I suppose, for this peace deal?
Oh, Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. Should he have been given the Nobel Peace Prize, do you think?
Oh, he should have done. He should have done. Donald Trump has done more for this area than anybody.
Okay.
Than anybody in my. And while I'm on the line to you.
Sure, go ahead.
I also think I'm absolutely disgusted with this government. Keir Starmer has just been to India. He's going to Egypt. He'd rather spend more time out of this country than he would addressing the problems in this country.
Some people call him Never Hear Keir. Listen, Jackie, thanks so much for your thoughts. Thanks as Paul as well in Leeds, who says, I'm not having it. Cards for illegal immigrants with £3,000 on it. No, no, no. You leave the country with what you arrive with. Other than outbound travel, nothing else. Tom says, so this young man is happy for the Jews. To leave our country for whatever reason sends the wrong message. Stick them on an isolated island off the coast that we own and only let them leave when they agree to go back where they came from. No money should be given. Bridie's been in touch and says about the jihad flag that Samara Gill had there. We appear to have lost vision here. You can, of course, still hear me, I think. So I'll just keep talking. Apologies for that. We'll sort that out. We'll see what has happened behind the scenes. Some gremlins in the system. But Bridie's been in touch and says, morning, Peter. About the jihadi flag, I'm more surprised someone obviously not of original British descent is calling for people to go back to where they came from. For that, lots to talk. Do let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Stay with me.
you know more than the Supreme Court?
Well, yes, actually, in this case, yes, I do.
Oh, God. What a moron. What an idiot. I mean, actually, it is a joke that the Supreme Court took 5 years to finally come to the learned conclusion. 5 years they deliberated.
Top legal minds.
And finally they said, you know, what we've worked out is that if you're born like a woman, a female, then you're a woman.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Sam in Lancashire believes the person carrying the jihadi flag is a racist. I think, in my strongly held personal view, you're absolutely right. Are we all racist with our British flags as well, says Sam. No. Sam's got his tongue firmly in his cheek, or indeed her cheek. Could be a woman. Paul in Preston says, great show as always. Peter, surely these illegal immigrants are criminals and they've already broken the law by entering a country illegally. They have. Certainly if they've come across it in a small boat. Mike says that flag the boy is carrying is called the Shahada. It is the declaration of Islamic faith. It has been co-opted by terror groups. Unfortunately, much like the Union flag or St George's Cross, it has been hijacked by proper far-right groups. So referring to it as a terror flag is technically incorrect. That is Mike in Lincolnshire, who was a counter-terrorism investigator for 7 years. Mike, very interesting, and thank you for that. Sean in Gloucester says, I've had a gutful of all this woke nonsense. The most important thing for any immigrant coming to this country is to want to be British. The skin colour, religion or whatever is totally irrelevant, but the woke virtue signalling loony left can't get past this idiotic racism. If any immigrants don't want to adopt our way of life, don't come or leave. Simple, says Sean in Gloucester. Let's go to Susan in Hertfordshire. Susan, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
I'd like to first of all say thank you, Peter, because honestly, you listen to all the rubbish going on at the moment, and you and your station are the only people that are pushing out the truth and are honest about what's going on.
That's really kind, Susan. Thank you. We just got to cut through the noise, all of us. And it's not just me, it's not just my fellow presenters, people like you, Susan, who come on the air, tell the truth and speak common sense.
Okay, well, there's lots that I want to say, but I just want to keep it succinct. What I would like to say is, when is this government going to do some investigation into the Palestinian Solidarity campaign? Because Ben Jamal is on all the platforms saying exactly what he thinks, and that these marches are not going to stop till the Zionist entity is disbanded. Now, when you look at these marches and you look at all the posters and the placards that they carry, they're all uniform placards. How does somebody mobilise 500,000 people and provide them with placards that are exactly the same? Who's actually financing this? Because I think that if they do a little bit of research, they'll find out that this is all being funded by Iran, and I'm not being a scaremonger, but...
No, listen, I'm sure... Susan, I'm going to keep us both on the right side of the law by saying that I'm sure Ben Jamal and the Palestine Solidarity Committee would deny those claims. What I think you're absolutely right on, Susan, is that there does need to be more investigation. I would happily interview Ben Jamal on a future occasion. I have interviewed him once. Didn't go too well for him, and he hasn't been back on my show since. But if he wants to come back on my show and talk about why these protests are happening now, I can see, you know, some well-intentioned people, I think they're wrong, but well-intentioned people who support the Palestinian cause going in those marches before a ceasefire, holding up banners saying ceasefire now. Well, there is a ceasefire. There is a ceasefire that is about to happen. But you're absolutely right, Susan, and I wonder whether this has just been put into the too difficult box, not just by the government, but also by the Metropolitan Police.
But the other thing as well is that, you know, I did a lot of studying of the Holocaust and how it actually happened, and you think, how could a civilized country like Germany allow it to happen? Well, you know what, without being a conspiracy theorist or a scaremonger, I can see this. It's a slow dripping tap. They even say, oh, we have Jews on our marches with us. Well, the fact of the matter is 85–90% of Jews are Zionists. They believe in the right of the state of Israel to exist. And 90% of Jews are horrified that whilst these marches are going on, whilst these young students are joining in with this hate fest, that in Israel, young people are putting on uniforms and fighting and dying for their countries.
Yeah.
And the manipulation and the lies. I mean, Jewish people would not agree with the dismantlement and the destruction of the state of Israel. The majority of Jews lives have changed beyond recognition.
You're absolutely right.
In the last 2 years.
And it's not just Jewish people, Susan, but many of the rest of us who are very, very worried about this, as well as I know you are. And thank you so much for your call. I appreciate it. I appreciate the kind words as well. Ashley is in London. Hello, Ashley. What would you like to say?
Good morning, Peter.
Morning.
Just really following on from your last caller, really. My major issue here is people like Corbyn, but mainly my call today was about Zara Sultana, who I find just to be an odious character.
You may very well say that, Ashley. I can possibly comment.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. But,
no, she is an odious character. No, I'm agreeing with you.
I mean, I just think that her comments at the march yesterday just kind of summarise, the whole situation that we have, and that is that it isn't necessarily about the war. It's about Israel, as we know. And
I didn't hear her comments, I must say, Ashley, but I mean they're very on brand. What you're describing.
I mean, her statement basically is we must sever all ties with Israel, genocide, apartheid state of Israel, odious.
Change the record, Sarah.
We'll march until Palestine is free from the river to the sea. And you just sit there. This is a sitting MP, right?
Well, we've got the Mayor of London. We've got the Mayor of London who says from the river to the sea isn't always anti-Semitic.
No, but we as Jews, look, people go, like the lady before said, that, we have Jews on our march. I mean, there were Jews that helped the Nazis, right? So there's an element within every community that are willing to sell out their souls to the people for survival, I suppose. And people do have different views. I accept that. But most of us believe that Israel has a right to exist, right? Yeah. And we believe that, how can we possibly have these people that are telling us, Jews, how to interpret what that meaning is. We know what that means, and I think most people probably do as well. And even the people that are saying it quite clearly do. But let's be honest, the greatest word in politics at the moment is it has to be taken in context. Well, it's a bit of a joke. I'm just really angry because
I share that anger, Ashley. I don't know if you saw Drive or listened to Drive on Friday. I had an interview with a woman called Emily Hilton, who is a Jewish person who's been on these marches. She wasn't too happy, I don't think, with how the interview went. I questioned her very robustly on why she had decided to join the marches. I still don't know. I still don't know why any Jew would join these marches. I don't know why any sensible person would join these marches. Not because people don't have a right to be pro-Palestinian. They do. But if you know that there are people who are carrying these hate flags that are saying that Israel doesn't have a right to exist on those marches, I don't know about you, Ashley, I don't want anything to do with those people. I don't want to be in a march with them. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to, well, I want to interview them maybe someday, but I don't want to be identified with them. I don't want to say, I agree with you because I'm on this march with you. I just find it baffling that there are people who still, to this day, will go on a march with, when they know there are people holding banners saying Hamas, Hezbollah, other people whose views are that every Jew should be killed and that Israel should be destroyed.
I mean, I've got some friends, also Jewish friends, who their daughter gone through the uni process. A lot of her friends are of come from a certain position, and it's inevitable that some of the comments that she makes about this don't sit comfortably with us, and I don't think they possibly do with their parents either. But it's about the education system and what's been the money that's been pumped into the system with the narrative. Qatar don't pump billions of pounds into America or UK's education system because they love us. They do it for influence and to control. And it's inevitable that kids, as they're growing up and as they're coming through, are for instance, reading that narrative, going along the lines of what they're being told, and then this is the end result of it, is my opinion anyway. So
no, listen, I think I agree with basically every word you've said, Ashley, and I appreciate you giving me a ring. 0344 499 1000 is the number Ashley called. You can too between now and 1 o'clock. We're going to talk to Sarah Pochin, the Reform UK MP. You got questions for her? You send them through, just like with Priti Patel. I'll read them out and ask her. 0344 499 1000 for WhatsApp, so you want to send them through. Chris, great producer of this programme, will put them up on the screen, and 87222 as well. Sarah Pochin, I think, is happy to speak to callers as well, actually. I didn't know that. So we will, if you want to talk to Sarah Pochin and me, give us a ring, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's talk now to the Reform UK MP Sarah Pochin. She is from Runcorn and Helsby and joins us now. Sarah, thanks for your company this morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you, Peter. Thanks for having me on the show. Oh, you can't hear me?
Do we have a problem with the audio? Maybe I can't hear. Maybe there's a problem with my... Oh, no, hold on. I had a problem with my audio. I think I can hear Sarah. Sarah, are you there?
Can you hear
yes,
me
there you
now?
are. Sorry, it was my side. It was my side. I hadn't properly inserted my dongle. Right, Sarah.
That sounds wrong on so many levels.
Yes. Now then, let's move on swiftly from that. But it is now properly inserted, and I can hear you properly. Right, Sarah, who is the Reform UK MP for Runcorn and Helsby. Sarah, there's so much around this morning. First of all, Keir Starmer taking credit for the Gaza deal. Should he take any credit? Is it Donald Trump's credit to take? Should it be shared? What do you think?
Absolute disgrace that he's gone over to Gaza. I still can't believe that he declared Palestine recognised Palestine as a state with no democratic debate in Parliament. He slipped that in, didn't he? And I believe that is against the will of so many of the British people. So for him to go over here now, like you say, claim the credit should go to Donald Trump.
Should he win the Nobel Peace Prize, do you think?
Did you say, do I think he will, or should it? I think he should?
Should Donald Trump have won, or should he in future win the Nobel Peace Prize, do you think?
Well, look, if this comes off, I think he'll have done more with the Abraham Accords, which he didn't ever really get any credit for in 2020. Sorry, and he never got credit for that. That started off this peace process in that whole region. If he pulls this off as well and gets peace in this region, in between Palestine and Israel, then yes, I think absolutely. At the end of the day, Barack Obama got one, didn't he? And I think he himself said he wasn't sure what he'd done to earn it other than be the president. But yeah, I think credit where credit's due. He potentially has achieved something that no one else has achieved.
It's really interesting as well with, in this country, the reaction to that ceasefire. We've had yet more protests. Why? I can't quite fathom. Maybe it's just hatred of Israel. We've had a report from Samara Gill, who went down to Whitehall in central London yesterday. She interviewed a young man who had an ISIS flag. Clearly there are people who want to destroy Israel. He actually said that he wanted Israel to be off the map, and he wanted Jews to, as he said, go back to where they came from. I mean, the majority of people in Israel presumably were born there. So the point is, Sarah, I just wonder what a Reform UK government would do about those protests. Would you allow people to protest? Would you restrict them? What would your policy be?
Look, anybody flying an ISIS flag, in my view, is a potential terrorist threat, should be arrested, potentially deported on their state, depending on their status, of course. But those people are not welcome on our streets, and a Reform government would not let that sort of protest take place. I mean, the pro-Palestinian group that is now proscribed seems to still be out on our streets. It's not acceptable. Whilst we have, Tower Hamlets declaring the Pink Ladies an extreme right, protest group. How absolutely ridiculous.
And somehow missing off the list of prejudices and hatreds, anti-Semitism just happens to have dropped off their list for the fourth year in a row. Funny that. Sarah, I just wonder, just in regard to those protests, what about people who are protesting peacefully, for example, yesterday? People who come out on the streets and say, look, I'm just for the pro-Palestinian cause. I'm not supporting Palestine action. I'm not supporting the destruction of Israel. I'm not supporting any terrorist group. They're peacefully protesting. They're just people who disagree with you and me. Should they have a right to protest?
I think the great thing about this country is that we are a democracy, although we are fighting desperately here in Reform to keep that democracy. But we are a democracy, and a peaceful protest is, of course, allowed and should always be allowed. However, if you are flying flags of proscribed terrorist organisations, then clearly that is not acceptable in my view. But a peaceful protest, Reform will always support the right for people to do that, as long as there is no incitement of violence at all by any organisation.
Let's talk about another part of the world, China. Huge story, growing story in regard to an alleged spy scandal. There are 2 people who haven't been prosecuted. There are many worries about the role of the National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell. I think he might be dumped this week by Labour as a result of all of this. Where does Reform UK stand on all of this, especially when it comes to foreign interference, alleged spying by China? I mean, we know China is a threat. The Labour government failed to submit evidence in that trial in regard to saying that China was a threat. Presumably you think it's a threat.
Of course it's a threat. We know China's a threat. And what's happened potentially, and it's all going to come out this week, it's going to be raised in Parliament on Tuesday. There will be urgent questions put to the government on Tuesday on this subject. So we will try and get to the bottom of it. But it sounds, doesn't it, at the moment, as though this British government has kowtowed down to China, is letting them off the hook. We potentially have 2 individuals here that we know were spying for China, and we're going to do nothing about. Well, what does that say about this government putting the security of this country first, as opposed to, as I say, bowing down to the Chinese?
Sarah, you've very kindly agreed in 2 weeks' time to do half an hour of a phone-in. Anybody can ring you about any issue, we'll put them to you. Let's have a little amuse-bouche now, because you very kindly agreed to take a few calls. Laura Jane is in Hampshire and has given me a ring. She's got a question for Sarah. Laura Jane, you're very welcome. You're on with Sarah, you're on with me. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter, and hi, Sarah. I'm a great admirer of yours. I voted Reform at the last election, and we do have a new branch here in Hampshire. Anyway, my point is, I'm a retired teacher, and I left teaching when I could see that bureaucracy was taking over. But now, and that was whatever it is, too many years ago. I am very worried about the indoctrination of children. I saw that in Wales, in a primary school, they had an imam go in, and the parents were worried when children came home with, you know, various Muslim things that, as a Christian school, etc. And there is a Reform counsellor who is on it. But I wondered what your, plans are, and as an ex-education person, I'd be very happy to come and advise on the curriculum. I wondered what your plans are, because we really have a fight on our hands, because the children are our future, and this is seriously worrying.
Thanks, Laura Jane. Sarah?
Yeah, Laura, Laura Jane, it's a subject very close to my heart. We can all see the indoctrination of our young people by these sort of far left ideas, and by a culture that simply isn't ours as well. At the end of the day, we are fundamentally a Christian country. We will teach our children, I believe we should teach our children about other religions and about other cultures, but always under the premise that we are a Christian country, and that is not our culture. We have our own culture that should be protected. And I feel very, very strongly about young people being brainwashed, and I use that word on purpose, because of course it then goes through to their college years, and it goes through to their university years, and it also opens up a whole subject, Laura, about how we're teaching our children about history. I believe that in schools today, we are not teaching our children enough about British history, about what we've given the world, about what we should be proud of, and that needs to change.
Thank you, Laura Jane. Thank you, Sarah. Let's go to Stephen in Manchester. Stephen, you're on with me and with Sarah Pochin. What would you like to ask Sarah?
I would like to ask Sarah, will an incoming Reform government be prepared to do what's been done, to be fair, in many continental countries? I'm a proud Brexiteer, but they've got this right, and that is protect cash usage, so that we have a law change that ensures people can use physical cash. Because in a cashless society, we're very quickly made bond slaves to the state and corporate entities. So I'd like to ask her, are they prepared to do anything in this direction?
Stephen, thanks for that question. This comes up quite a lot, Sarah. We've got a number of people who are really worried. It comes into things like digital ID as well. People like Stephen and others as well who contact this station who say a cashless society means everything, every movement, every purchase can be tracked, and people want a bit more autonomy. What do you think of this idea of a cashless society, Sarah?
I absolutely agree with, is it Stephen, the
Stephen,
caller?
yeah.
We do have to maintain the ability to use cash, to some people, especially older people particularly, don't want to be worried about, tap and go and all that sort of thing. They want to be able to use cash. And another big thing that's happening in our communities is the banks are completely disappearing. So in Runcorn, we don't have a bank anymore. So one of the things that I'm supporting is sort of a community hub where they're going to have a banking kind of facility, and we are starting to notice now they're coming back in places like libraries. But how awful that a community doesn't even have a bank of any description.
I try to do as much banking as I can at my local post office as well, to just support the post office and keep it open as well. That's another big part of this. Stephen, thanks for your question there. We're going to take a final question for Sarah from Anne in Sussex, maybe more of a comment. Anne, you're on with Sarah Puchin and with me. What would you like to say?
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I'm glad it's Sarah, because when I didn't really ring in to speak to the public on this, but I was very concerned to watch a programme that I stumbled on, and it looked like people from different countries were speaking on it, and some politicians from here. But it was implying, and it wasn't implying, it was saying that Farage and the Reform Party, equating them with Mosley and the black shirts, that they were that bad and people should be warned. And as I listened, it wasn't the sort of thing I would normally. I thought, where's this coming from? And during the interval, there weren't any adverts, and it looks like it's being funded by some organisation outside of this country, I would almost believe. And I thought, you know what this is? This is one world government.
Well, it's really interesting, Anne, because we've had Paul Nowak, for example, the head of the Trades Union Congress, the big union, this week, calling Nigel Farage a racist. He's called Robert Jenrick a racist as well. There are people who talk about fascism, far right, throwing around those kind of labels, Sarah. I think it's unfair. What do you think?
I think it's an absolute disgrace, and it shows how desperate now both the Tories and the Labour are, because they know that reform's coming straight through the middle, and we have the will of the British people behind us. So they are throwing all sorts of insults and accusations, very, very dangerous ones. I mean, the threat to Nigel's life, he's so high risk now because of this type of stuff that's banded around. And very recently, Peter, who was the MP that accused him of having a Hitler Youth connection?
That was David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister, who then had to withdraw that. I mean, he couldn't even get his numbers right. He couldn't even get his time scales right, because Nigel Farage was born after the Second World War. So, I mean, it's just ludicrous that was made. David Lammy, I mean, literally in one breath said, well, we shouldn't do personal attacks, but we know Nigel Farage flirted with the Hitler Youth. Incorrect.
This is desperate.
Totally wrong.
Desperate rhetoric now. But worse than that, it's inciting violence. It's dangerous rhetoric. And I'd like to know if some of these people saying these sort of things, are they getting arrested? Like the people that put out fairly mild tweets that I've got two in my constituency that have gone to prison. How ridiculous. And yet some of these that are clearly inciting violence, and it would be very interesting to see what the sentence that's given to
Are you saying the Deputy Prime Minister is inciting violence against Nigel Farage?
Well, I think calling Nigel Farage or trying to label him as in his youth as being affiliated with the Hitler Youth is really nasty and really serious rhetoric. And we already know that Nigel is a target. Of course, he's a target by some of these far left extremists.
Well, we've seen that conviction on Friday as well. Sarah, just one more question before you go. Conservative Party conference this week. Priti Patel, I think, did the best speech I've seen her give. Are you worried?
No, the Conservative Party are a busted flush. They had 14 years. They are so responsible for so many of the problems that we've got in this country. The principal one, of course, being the huge numbers of illegal immigrants landing on our shores, and you and me, the taxpayers, paying for them to live in this country. The Conservative government allowed that to happen. This Labour government has made it 10 times worse. But no, the Conservatives, I believe, are finished for at least 10 years, if not forever, and Reform are now the party of true opposition and will be the next government.
Sarah, thank you. That's Sarah Pochin there, the Reform UK for Runcorn and Helsby, joining us this morning. And as I said, on the 25th of October, a couple of weeks' time, Sarah's going to do a full half hour of your questions. We'll make sure there's plenty of a chance to get those questions in, to send them in and to let me know what you want to say as well. It's interesting, Jason in the Lake District's been in touch and says there's a lot of misinformation being spread by Labour, the Greens, the Lib Dems about Reform's leave to remain intentions is having an impact. My Turkish friend who has a barber shop and his family think that he's going to be kicked out if Reform get into power. Well, perhaps I'll ask Sarah about that on another occasion. Phil has said, how about this for a simple reason to apply for immigration policy? You get to stay based on the flag you fly, regardless of your colour, religion or status. I'm guessing the British flags would be raised countrywide and other flags would mysteriously disappear, says Phil. Thank you to Mary in County Down. He says, can we please stop asking this inane question about Trump getting the Nobel Prize? The deal only happened 5 minutes ago before the prize was decided. Obviously, it was too early to consider it. If the deal works, next year is the time for Trump to possibly get the Nobel Prize. But can we just be sensible about this? That's a fair point, although, of course, Donald Trump has raised it on many, many occasions and is pretty narked at not getting it. More of your opinions coming your way. We'll play some voice notes too. Haven't done that so far this show. We'll do that next. Stay with us.
Comes out with, I've no idea, or that's an irrelevant question. He gets a bit stroppy, which actually covers up the fact that he hasn't necessarily done his homework and his preparation before a given interview.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right then, let's just remind ourselves of what Samara Gill did yesterday. She is one of the presenters on this station. She was out and about in London, made a video about this young man, looks like a teenager, who was carrying an ISIS flag. This is what Samara reported. She's put it on her Twitter. We played it out earlier. I just want to remind you of it. And also, we're going to be speaking to her a little bit later on in the programme, along with a former extremist. So stay with us for that. Also, we'll play the video in just a second, but just to tell you, in about 10 minutes' time on the other side of the 12 o'clock news, live from Israel, we've got a British victim of Hamas who's really annoyed at Hamas terrorists being released. This is the biggest story in the world at the moment about this ceasefire. That's going to be a powerful interview, I hope. So stay tuned for that. But let's just see what Samara found on the streets of this country in Whitehall, bang in the centre of London, yesterday.
A flag for the Islamic State right near Westminster. I mean, we've had a terrorist attack in the past few weeks, and now we have someone wielding an Islamic State flag. Modern Britain confirmed that that flag there is a flag for jihad, so we're going to go have a look and ask them why they would fly that flag. I mean, there's the Palestinian flag and then there's the jihad flag. Two very different things. It's a very interesting flag. What does it mean?
Declaration of faith. Basically, it means there's no God but Allah, and his prophet is Muhammad. That's it.
It looks a lot like the jihad flag to me.
Nah, it's just a declaration of faith. That's it.
It's the Saudi flag, but it's just black.
Why are you here today at the protest?
We're here to show the government they need to cut ties with Israel. We want no more. We want Palestine to be free.
Free from what?
Free from Israel.
The troops have come out just a couple days ago, so it is effectively free now. Would you?
Yeah, it is, but obviously the original whole land, even where Israel is now, that was all Palestine's land anyways. So you want the land back.
Right, okay, so where are those Jews going to go?
Where they came from. They went to Palestine. There was somewhere else before.
Where
I'm not too educated on the history. I'm not too educated on the history. I'll be honest. But obviously, speak to someone older that knows the history. I'm not too educated on it. But all I know is Palestinians are getting killed right now, and yeah. So we're here to...
So you're happy for the Jews to be removed from Israel?
Very happy for that to happen.
Okay, and how would you want that to happen?
God knows, innit? I don't really know.
Interesting flag. That's the jihad flag, and he's just also called for the obliteration of all Jewish people. That's what's going on in the streets of the UK.
Samara Gill there. She's posted that on her Twitter at Daily Samara1. We'll be talking to her a little bit later on. Thank you to Jacqueline in Liverpool, who says a clearly uneducated individual walking through central London with a terrorist flag, a terrorist organisation that has killed British people. Never mind the police speaking to him. Prevent should be speaking to him. He is being radicalised and is a danger to us all, in the opinion of Jacqueline in Liverpool. Let's play some voice notes. I'm really sorry I haven't done any so far. The show has been an absolutely packed show. Let's hear from Daz.
Peter, Daz from Derby. If you want to start getting rid of these foreign criminals for the justice system, just to get them out of the country. First part is to get rid of this guy called Lord Hermer, who's like sticks up for him all the time. That's why I said that. Two goody lawyers. Thanks anyway. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Daz. Lord Hermer, Richard Hermer, I truly believe is the most dangerous man in government. I think Keir Starmer should have sacked him, but he won't, because he's his BFF, and he'll also, like Keir Starmer, a human rights lawyer. Let's hear from Kelvin.
Good morning, Peter. The problem with this country, you'll never get rid of all these migrants and the criminals. It doesn't matter who they are. You'll never get rid of them because you've got all the lefty lawyers. They're all criminals themselves, and they'll say that because they are criminals, these lawyers, because they bleed in our country dry. They know full well these people shouldn't be here. They should be deported, and they keep them here because they're making millions out of them. That's the problem. Same with, and this government is just as bad. They're criminals as well. So we've been taken over by criminals, the whole lot of them, and we'll never get anywhere with any of it unless Nigel Farage and his party get in and do what they say. And I think they will do what they say, and the sooner they get in, the better. Our country has been taken over now. It's turning into a dump, like all the dumps they've all come from. And these lefties just can't see it. They're just letting the country go to ruin. Bye.
Calvin, thanks for your thoughts there. Let's hear from Nick. He wants to talk about Priti Patel.
Good morning, Peter. It's Nick from Loughborough. Your recent interview with Priti Patel has wound me up. And she stood there, had the temerity to talk about Starmer's overreach with the digital ID, which I wholeheartedly disagree with. and she made the assumption that it was an assault on our freedoms. This coming from the woman who stood foursquare behind the biggest assault on our freedoms in 2020 with the ridiculous lockdowns, and she was pushing for severe fines, including imprisonment for people that broke the lockdown conditions. I'm appalled at her hypocrisy. Peter, great show as usual. Have a good weekend.
Nick, thank you. Let's hear another couple of voice notes maybe before the news. Dale?
Hi, Peter. Great show. Dale from Stenning here. This system failure is ridiculous. You know, if they commit a crime, we shouldn't be paying to then put them away. They commit a crime in this country, they go home. That's it. Hold them in a detention centre until there's enough there to then send them home on one single flight, get them gone. No appeal process. Why should there be an appeal process? They commit a crime, get them gone. If I commit a crime, I should pay for that crime. They need to pay for that crime and go back to their own country. I'm sorry, that's harsh, but there is absolutely nothing more we should be doing for them. Cheers, mate.
Dale, cheers. Thank you very much. David in East London says criminals forfeit their rights, human rights included. It is that simple. Don't do the crime. We all have a conscience and know right from wrong. Regarding Samara's clip, he is the child of someone possibly just as stupid. Parents of a foreign culture as well. These other cultures just do not go here anymore. Folk want their England back. They are nothing like us, says David in East London. Mega Vegan has been in touch and says the illegals arriving here have liaised with and funded smuggling gangs which are guilty of manslaughter, causing others to drown in the Channel. As such, all small boat arrivals are guilty of joint enterprise. Let's hear one more voice note before the break. Alison?
Morning, Peter. It's Alison in South Wales. Right, firstly, I think we should be building detention centres like we did the Nightingale hospitals. We can do them really quickly. We can make them secure. We take everybody's fingerprints. We take their DNA so that they cannot come back into this country. If you come here illegally, you are automatically deported. So that's a deterrent in itself, isn't it? You're not going to be staying anywhere nice. Any criminals who commit crimes in this country get automatically deported back to their country of origin. I don't see why we should be paying for any more of this. And if you are deemed not to be able to stay, then that's it. No procrastination, no nothing. That's it. You've been deemed not to be able to stay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Really good opinions coming through today. Keep them coming. We've got another hour of the programme to go and loads of opportunity to get your voice on the air. 0344 499 1000. In just a moment, we're going to go to Israel. A British person who was a victim of Hamas. Now, the perpetrator is going to be let out under this deal. Big story today. Let us know what you think. We'll go live to Israel in just a minute.
We've been talking this morning about a new theme park which is going to be built. The Universal Studios apparently are going to build it in Bedfordshire. We've been asking many of you to give us some ideas for theme parks. Alison in South Wales says in the new theme park at 5 p.m. every day they could have the PIP parade. All the people driving their brand new Motability cars.
Instead of the water rapids, you can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going round that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth for this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a £5 in a pot and you can go in and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed, and very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the Parks Hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. And what about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park, narrated by Angela Rayner. says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. But they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide rides surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed Whack the Rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Moat right around the park.
Yeah.
There's loads of dinghies. Call it the channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine the Scouts to say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour ghost train.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, this is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell here with you right through to 1 o'clock. Lots to discuss, including the biggest story in the world at the moment, the release, hopefully, of those hostages in the next couple of days, and the price that is being paid by the Israeli people. We speak to a British woman in just a second who was attacked by a Hamas terrorist who is now going to be released. You're not going to want to miss that interview in just a second. We'll also return to the streets of London where anti-Semitism is rife. We'll speak to Samara Gill, our presenter here at Talk, who was out on the streets of London yesterday. A man carrying an ISIS flag said he wanted Israel to be wiped off the map. Those are the people, or some of the people anyway, who are protesting on our streets. We'll speak to a former extremist who now educates people, turns them away from horrendous lives of terrorism, about what he thinks as well. We'll get your opinion on all the big stories today. China, we're talking about what's happening with Keir Starmer. We're also talking about so many other things, the royal family as well, Prince Andrew, Ed Miliband splitting with Starmer over £100 billion mega project. We're talking about violent migrants facing deportation who are still in the UK. We don't seem to be able to get rid of them. Loads of opportunity between now and 1 o'clock to get your voice on the air, to send a voice note, to send me a message. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell, send me a voice note, less than a minute please, otherwise we won't play it. 0344 499 1000. You can also send me a WhatsApp text message on that number, or you can give me a ring on that number, 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss between now and 1 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk. I want to go live to Israel now, to a British Israeli. Her name is Tal Hartuv, and she was a victim alongside her guide. She was hiking in the Judean hills in 2010 when they were ambushed, tied up. Tal was stabbed 18 times. Christine was murdered. And now the person who did it, a Hamas terrorist, is going to be released. Tal Hartuv joins me now from Israel. Tal, thank you for speaking to Talk today. I wonder if you could just talk me through what happened to you in 2010.
Yes, thank you, Peter, for having me on. I was the tour guide. I'll just give a couple of seconds to this because I was born in Britain and I did up to high school, and then I moved to Israel. I'm Jewish, and I was working as a tour guide, and I was guiding a Christian American lady, and as you say, we were ambushed, held at machete point for half an hour, and that's an eternity, and they found my Israeli ID, and then they tied our hands behind our back, they put a gag on us, they took off my Star of David, forced us to our knees, said Allahu Akbar, and they started butchering, and I fell to the ground, and I'm looking at my friend 2 meters away, and the only thing I can do is play dead. I mean, I don't want to be too graphic, but I think it's necessary. I can hear my bones crunch, and I watch my friend praying and crying to her God, and they hacked her up before my eyes. And when these murderers had left, I had one commission left in life, which was to die near where I parked the car so the police could find my body. And I managed to stand somehow, turn my back on what was left of my friend, and gag bound barefoot with 18 machete wounds, over 30 broken bones, a collapsed lung, a sliced diaphragm, snapped ribs, broken shoulder blade. I walked over a mile and surprisingly found help.
How on earth, my goodness, that is just, gosh, I mean, where to start with that? So you watched your friend Christine, you watched her be murdered by this jihadi?
Yes, I did. And I think, actually, I got to say something. I mean, despite the gore, I mean, the gore was horrible, but I think one of the most scarring things for me has been the sheer helplessness of what terrorism does. You know, just, and that's so rage-inducing. I mean, we all want to be in control of our life, right?
Of course.
So,
let's talk about the implications of all of that just in a second. But just bring us back to the attack just once more. You were stabbed, you had 18 separate wounds. You had all those extra wounds and broken bones and so on that you spoke about. I mean, what on earth was that mile journey like back to your car? How did you do it?
Well, a very interesting question. When we're talking about stab wounds, I'm talking about a knife with a serrated edge that is over a foot long. Okay, so I did it. I realized, I mean, there's a whole philosophical conversation here, right? But I took it one step at a time, never believing that I would actually live to see the next step. And I tell you, I don't care if I'm on TV for any other reason, but when I was busy dying walking through the forest, I wasn't thinking like, oh, I never bought a house, I never got 20,000 likes on Instagram. I was thinking about the people I loved and that time squandered and all these things that are so valuable that we don't take care of. That was very formative for me. So the walk back was simply a step at a time.
What happened?
I'm as surprised as you are to have me on the show. I didn't expect to be alive.
What happened when you finally got help? Because they did catch the perpetrator.
Yeah, I stabbed one of them in the balls with a penknife. So the little...
Good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, I wish I'd have... Never mind, I better not go there. But so his DNA on my sleeve led to the police managing to catch them. They were apprehended very quickly, and actually they confessed to murdering another Israeli woman 10 months previous to the day that they attacked ourselves. And I was in court with these people. And I'll tell you, Peter, when the judge turned around and he looked at these savages in the eye and he said, well, hang on, why did you murder an American Christian? And they shrugged and they smirked and they said, oh, we thought she was Jewish. And they got put away, and one of them is going to be released in this hostage deal.
Well, what do you make of that? I've got to tell you, Tal, you know, I haven't been affected like you at all. I lived a pretty safe life in Northern Ireland, but I do know for many people there, the release of terrorists was a major, major thing 25 years ago when we had our peace deal. How do you feel that your own perpetrator, the person who did that to you, is being released as part of this deal?
Wow, how long have we got, so to speak? Look, I'll say something that everybody knows this verse from the Bible because there's a pop song by the Byrds called Turn, 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 right? There's a time to be born, a time to die. And the Hebrew Bible, or as it's called over there, the Old Testament, says there is a time to rejoice and a time to cry. And that time is now, meaning it's both. I can be angry, I can be raging, I can feel what a terrible miscarriage of justice on one hand, and on the other hand, I can also feel relieved and I can be thrilled that my people are getting their people home. It's this and that. And listen, Peter, I have to also say, well, I'm not a politician. There's not a lot I can do. And I have been, by the way, I did speak about, for years, I spoke about the funding of the British government, the funding of the Palestinian Authority, who, you're a hardworking man, I can see this, and your taxes have been rewarding the people who tried to murder me. And I'll tell you something, I'm on a roll, right?
Go for it.
I mean, you live on once. I tell you, Oh man, I need a cigarette in a minute.
Take your time. Take your time.
No, it's okay, but I've got so much to say. But I wrote a few years ago, I wrote to every single MP, all right? And I attached my terrible, gory photos of my stab wounds. And I said, your government are taking taxes from the British people. I still have family in England. And they're rewarding these savages in jail. You know, out of all the MPs I wrote, it's over 200 or something, I don't remember. I got most of them ignored it. Their next biggest section in the pie chart was they want a postcode. And then 3 of them wrote back. And what did they say? They expressed sympathy, and I thanked them for that. And then they said this: be assured that the British government is working on a 2-state solution. Peter, I wasn't asking about a 2-state solution. It's before October the 7th. How outrageous. Can I just say, I think you have the most immoral government in decades in the United Kingdom. Paying savages, allowing for these depraved to march on the streets, even though we have a cessation in hostilities. You've got your Home Secretary joining these marches, and then she condemns them and says they probably shouldn't go ahead. Like, what is happening? This is outrageous. This isn't the Britain I grew up in.
It's interesting when you talk about the British example here, because were this to happen in Britain, were these kinds of people to be released as part of, let's say, a similar deal were to happen here, you're quoted in a newspaper today saying, can you imagine the British government ever agreeing to release those who killed Lee Rigby or took part in the Manchester Arena bombing? And that is a really stark comparison. But that's what you have to accept, Tal. That's what you're being told to accept.
Look, Peter, I think that's good, because I forgot to say that bit, right? Yes, I'm being told to accept that. And if you want like a numerical equivalent, right, the people who were murdered in Israel be the equivalent in British society of 8,400 British people murdered in one day. That, by the way, is just a few hundred short of the population of the 1 square mile of the city of London. We have 1,750 kidnapped, which is the size of Bramford Village. And I tell you, the fact that Israel has been pushed into a corner, you call me paranoid or whatever, but only the Jews would be even targeted to accept some kind of deal like this. It's been outrageous how governments, especially this Labour government, how they have treated this terrible massacre that we endured from day one.
Just finally, when those hostages are very hopefully put back into the arms of their families and given the medical attention, the food that they need, repatriated to the country they love, what will be running through your mind, do you think, Tal?
I will be weeping with them. I'll be so thrilled. And I know my people, and I know in a few months when they've been with their loved ones, I know they're going to come to me and they're going to hug me and they're saying, we know this cost you so dearly. But we are a society that we've been through so much for thousands of years. We're going to get through this. And it's the ability and the graciousness to take both sides, all right? I'm at the worst place I can possibly be, but it's my moral responsibility to embrace these poor, poor, dear families. And I know they'll do the same for me when the time is right. Israel is going to survive this. I have questions about what the United Kingdom's going to be in a few years' time.
Tal, it has been an absolute privilege speaking to you today. I wish I had half the strength that you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Shalom.
That is Tal there, Tal Hertov, who is a victim of a terrorist attack. She's being told your perpetrator is getting the person who did this to you, who killed your friend, the person who stabbed you, left you for dead, broke your bones, is being let out of prison as part of this deal. Just a really, really difficult thing for her, clearly, to accept, but she has the strength to accept it and get on with her life despite her anger. It's fascinating. What did you make of that interview? 0344 499 1000. For the wider picture of what's going to happen over the next few days, Edmund Fitton-Brown is with us, a former UK ambassador to Yemen, former coordinator of UN sanctions and threat assessment. He's also a senior fellow of the Foundation for Defence of Democracy. Edmund, I just reeling from that interview, my goodness, what an incredible strength that Tal has. And the Israeli people are being asked to accept so much in this deal. But hopefully the hostages, the 20 of them we think are alive, will be back safe, maybe not well. They'll need huge trauma counselling, they'll need huge medical attention and just food in the next few days. Just tell us how you see things playing out over the next few days, given what we've been told, Edmund.
Thanks, Peter. And let me say, first of all, it's humbling to come on after Tal because she spoke with such passion and such extraordinary insight. This kind of thing is incredibly hard when you have an exchange deal. And this has happened before, of course, between Israel and Hamas, where there've been these very painful exchanges, painful from the Israeli point of view. They're letting people go who have a lot of blood on their hands. In this case, we're talking about nearly 2,000. 1,500 of those, 1,700 of those are people who were picked up in Gaza. 250 will be people with serious blood on their hands, people who are doing prison time, having been found guilty of violent crimes, including multiple murders. So that's a hard thing for people to accept, and I can understand that mixed feeling that Tal expressed so beautifully. There are some worries here. We want to see the hostages released by Monday, and we want to see the remains of the deceased hostages returned by Monday. I note that Hamas are now haggling over the identity of some of the people that the Israelis will release. And I think at the moment they're trying to sort of play brinkmanship with Israel and indicating they might release the hostages early if at least 2 of 7 people that they consider of particular high value are amongst the 1,950 people released. At the moment, the Israelis are saying no to that. I expect the Israelis to continue to say no, and I expect Hamas to cave on this, because I think if they fail to release the hostages, then they run the risk that President Trump will hold them or causing the deal to break down.
We're talking about problems already with the first phase of the deal. The second and third phases, there's still an awful lot to be negotiated here, isn't there? They're sort of getting it's a classic negotiation strategy, isn't it, where you deal with the most pressing issues first, and then the longer term, more difficult, more crunchy issues, those are coming later. And I mean, there's so much still to be negotiated here, isn't there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I think we have a reasonable expectation that the first phase of the deal will be successfully completed. I think probably Hamas will go ahead with the hostage releases. I'm sure the Israelis will keep to their part of the bargain on releasing the prisoners. And then the access for humanitarian trucks, I think that's a given. That will definitely happen. The guns have already more or less fallen silent. The Israelis have already deployed to the so-called yellow line. So I think we will get there. And of course, this is key in terms of the optics with President Trump planning a visit to the region tomorrow. But then, as you say, the crunchiest stuff comes in the second phase, and then perhaps even more so in the third phase. What I find interesting here is that the crunch points are going to hit Hamas before they hit Israel. Makes it very much in the Israelis' interest to get through this first phase successfully, because if they do so, then it's going to be Hamas who then have to show their colours over laying down their arms, over the decommissioning of some arms, over accepting that they have no future role in the governance of Gaza, over allowing an international stabilization force to deploy. And those are all crunch points. Then none of those things have been accepted by Hamas yet. And Hamas is showing some signs also of some movements on the ground that might be preparatory to resisting those intermediate stages. There have been some Hamas deployments. There have been skirmishes with the Dogmush clan. The Hamas say that they're trying to prevent looting in the interim phase. It looks to me as if they're pre-positioning to resist the second phase of the plan.
It'll be fascinating to see what happens, Edmund. It's great to talk to you. I always learn so much from you. You're my favourite Middle East analyst. No doubt we will talk more as this deal plays out. It'll be fascinating to see what happens this week. We'll bring it to you all on Talk. Thank you to so many people who've been in touch about Tal's interview as well. Stephen Thirsk, he says, Tal is amazing, such strength and compassion. Lynn says, Tal, what a woman. She brought tears to my eyes. What a strong lady. Amazing. I hope she recognises the silent majority in our country support the Jewish population. Tim in Surrey says, what a wonderful woman Tal is. More like her, please. And Cliff as well says, what a great guest. She is strong and formidable. Her story is awful. Her story is awful, and if you have been affected by it and you want to talk to somebody or you want to get a bit more information about resources that are there, please go to talk.tv/helplines. When we have things that are potentially distressing, we do tell people about these helplines. You can go on the website, you can see loads of information of places to go, talk.tv/helplines. And if you want to talk about Tal's interview and perhaps it struck a chord with you, perhaps there are things you want to get off your chest on the air, do give me a shout, 0344 499 1000. We'll get more of your thoughts and your voice notes and your calls coming up in just a minute here on Talk.
Unfortunately, Messy Nigel has a downside. You know, when he's challenged on something where he doesn't actually know the answer or he hasn't thought about the numerical consequences of a particular policy, he suddenly he comes out with, "I've no idea," or "That's an irrelevant question." He gets a bit stroppy, which actually covers up the fact that he hasn't necessarily done his homework and his preparation before a given interview.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's hear some more voice notes. This one, we just get the letter L. I don't know if it's L like ELLE, or maybe it's like L like it's some sort of MI5 operative called L like M or Q. Anyway, the mysterious L left this voice note.
Morning, Cardi P. I listen to you all the time. I'm a big fan. Regarding immigration, I lived in my previous house for 24 years and I had planned to stay there forever. I had never had any intention of moving, and I had to move and take my daughters because of the massive immigration. There were so many HMOs popping up down my street, the abuse that we used to get from them, I'm selling up and going. So left my forever home.
That's grim. That is really grim that had to happen. HMOs, of course, homes of multiple occupancy, houses that are usually houses previously then changed into flats. Often asylum seekers are put in there. Clearly a very, very rough time from that person. Let's hear from Steve.
Peter, you ask why we can't deport them. We can. We have the legislation in place. everything is there. What we have is the political will in the past 40 years where lefty lawyers and human rights people have taken over the justice system. And therein lies your problem. Until you get rid of them, until you get rid of the human rights lawyers, you will not be able to do it. It will be thwarted. And many thanks. Good show. Steve from Bristol.
Thank you, Steve. Let's hear from Judy.
Hello, it's Judy from Altos, West Yorkshire. All this deporting criminals, etc., etc., and human rights lawyers stopping them, it could easily be stopped. All they've got to do with the vast majority is bring in a law overnight. You cannot claim benefits or legal aid unless you've lived and worked in this country for 10 years. There you are, it's all sorted. If the legal rights lawyers want to help them, they can do it out of the goodness of their hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. I should just say, I love to hear your voice, Judy, but I can hear my own voice in the background, and just a very kind and hopefully reasonable reminder just to, I want you to hear me, I want you to listen to me all the time, of course I do, but do mute the TV or the radio just when you're recording your voice note. We do have some people who have hearing problems, and we just want to make sure that those voice notes come through really, really clearly. We'll play some more in a minute or two. I want to hear Jane's one in just a second on the Tal interview, but before that I want to go to Georgina in London, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Georgina, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hello, Peter. I can't speak very well at the moment because I've had bone grafts in my jaw.
Okay, we can hear you clearly, Georgina. So just if it's okay for you to do so, do go ahead. Don't put yourself in any pain or discomfort, please.
Well, I think it's important that I need to say what I'm going to say, Peter, and thank you for giving me the option of doing so. We can't keep allowing this government to continue to make excuses for the lack of urgency to get the migrant crisis under control and to deport criminals from our country. The government have the capability to leave the ECHR within a week if they had the political will to do so, Peter. But they don't have that political will. Whilst we are left here with soaring crime rates and a serious threat to our national security, as well as putting an unbearable strain on our already crumbling economy. We need a total revamp of our judiciary, Peter, so these criminals do not get to stay in Britain for any length of time.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, Georgina, because certainly Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary, was talking about a revamp of our judiciary, about changing the rules about how judges are appointed. Do you have any faith in those plans if you've seen them?
I have no faith in the Conservative Party whatsoever.
Okay.
They've had plenty of time, Peter, to sort out this problem for 14 years, and they've done nothing. We have to have the authority to deport without delay, without hindrance, through a biased judicial system. This government has got to start prioritising the safety of the British people, as we have been put on the back burner. Our needs and concerns forgotten and neglected. And if we dare raise our concerns, we're branded racist, fascist, far-right or Nazi. These words no longer have meaning, Peter, as they are used on a far too regular basis.
Georgina, I think a lot of people will agree with you. Just a final point, if you don't mind.
Remember that a government that does not prioritise the safety of its people, Peter, is not your government. It's your enemy. And we have to get a handle on this situation as soon as possible. Or the country that we love so dearly will be lost forever, and we can't allow that to happen.
Georgina, thank you so much. I wish you well in your recovery from your operation there as well. That's Georgina in London there. Just one more voice note before the break. Just a bit of reaction to Tal's interview, the woman from Israel. He just went through that horrendous ordeal. We heard from her about 25 minutes ago. Let's hear from Jane.
Morning, Peter. It's Jane here. Pass on my love and hugs and thoughts to Tal. She's the most wonderful woman that I've heard in ages upon ages, and she's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tal. I feel exactly the same way. Really, really brave person. Here on the streets of London, of this country, of the United Kingdom, not just in London, but in many different places, there is a real scourge of anti-Semitism. It is a really bad thing against people like Tal, who are from here, against Jewish people who are from here, against Jewish people in Israel as well. Really interesting video emerged. My colleague Samara Gill went onto the streets, went on to Whitehall and interviewed a man. We've played that a couple of times, but we're going to talk to Samara in a second, and a former extremist about that. You're going to want to hear what both those people have to say about that. We'll get your view as well in the next 29 minutes between now and 1 o'clock. Loads to discuss still. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, my colleague Samara Gill did a really important piece of reporting yesterday. This was on the streets of London, the protests that are still happening. This was Whitehall in the centre of London. There are still people who are pro-Palestinians protesting. So many of them, I'm afraid we can very, very clearly know what their motivations are. One particular person carrying the ISIS flag. This is what Samara found out. We'll talk to her in just a second, and a former extremist. Let's have a look at the video first.
A flag for the Islamic State right near Westminster. I mean, we've had a terrorist attack in the past few weeks, and now we have someone wielding an Islamic State flag. Modern Britain confirmed that that flag there is a flag for jihad, so we're going to go have a look and ask them why they would fly that flag. I mean, there's the Palestinian flag and then there's the jihad flag. Two very different things. It's a very interesting flag. What does it mean?
Declaration of faith. Basically, it means there's no God but Allah, and his prophet is Muhammad. That's it.
It looks a lot like the jihad flag to me.
Nah, it's just a declaration of faith. That's it. It's the Saudi flag, but it's just black.
Why are you here today at the protest?
We're here to show the government they need to cut ties with Israel. We want no more. We want Palestine to be free.
Free from what?
Free from Israel.
The troops have come out just a couple days ago, so it is effectively free now. Would you?
Yeah, it is, but obviously the original whole land, even where Israel is now, that was all Palestine's land anyways. So you want the land back.
Right, okay, so where are those Jews going to go?
Where they came from. They went to Palestine. There was somewhere else before.
Where were
educated on the history. I'm not too educated on the history. I'll be honest, but obviously speak to someone older that knows the history. I'm not too educated on it. But all I know is Palestinians are getting killed right now, and yeah. So we're here to...
So you're happy for the Jews to be removed from Israel?
I'm very happy for that to happen.
Okay, and how would you want that to happen?
God knows, innit? I don't really know.
Interesting flag. That's the jihad flag, and he's just also called for the obliteration of all Jewish people. That's what's going on in the streets of the UK.
Samara Gill there, I have just retweeted it. You can find it on our own Twitter, which is @DailySamara1. You can also find it on my Twitter, which is @Peter Cardwell. It's got about 416,000 views at the moment. Let's speak to the woman herself. Samara, just talk us through that, why you went there. And I mean, were you as shocked as I was, or kind of weirdly not shocked as well? Because we know some of those people on those marches do hold those opinions.
Peter, thank you so much for having me on. I mean, the reason that I went out yesterday specifically, because I've attended a few of those marches, just sort of out of pure journalistic what's going on. But yesterday was particularly trite because Israel has partially withdrawn most of its troops out of Gaza. There's a ceasefire agreement in place. We've got aid flowing in. We've got prisoners being released and the hostages seemingly being released on Monday, praying to God that's going to happen. So why do we still have people out on the street? And that's kind of the question I was asking.
Maybe it's just because they don't like Israel.
Yes, precisely. There was a lot of Jew hatred going on, and I felt like it was more dark and insidious this time around. It was there was people who were very extremist in their tendencies, and a lot of crazy stupid going around, which is...
Were there fewer people there than there have been on other marches? I wonder if there's a hardcore now, and maybe some of the people have said, actually, we've been saying ceasefire now there's a ceasefire, we'll stay at home.
It's a great point you make, Peter. I mean, I went towards the end of it more for security reasons and also just because that was kind of the time of day that I found myself there. But there were, when I look at the videos from yesterday, there were still thousands upon thousands of people marching out on the streets. A lot of people I spoke to said that they don't want a peace agreement because it's come from Donald Trump. I mean, that's the ludicrous nature and the flawed sort of thought process of these people marching on the streets. And it really scared me what I witnessed yesterday. We're seeing a very extreme level of anti-Semitism now that's come out of this movement.
Just the fact that you went, I don't mean to be patronising Samara in any way, but what I will say is A, well done, and B, my mentor in journalism once said, you can teach how to pick up a camera, you can teach how to write a story, you can teach how to edit audio, you cannot teach curiosity. That's what you have, and that's what led to this excellent piece of reporting. So well done.
Thank you so much, Peter. But honestly, I saw that jihad flag and I had to go straight to that guy because if he was wielding an English flag, maybe the police would have been after him and sort of trying to make sure that he put that thing away. But no, the jihad flag was being flown very proudly up and down next to Westminster, which is a very scary sight for modern Britain.
Samara, thank you. Samara Gill, the talk presenter. Let's speak to Sahil Ahmed, who's a former Islamic extremist. He turned away from that life. Sahil, what do you make of this?
Firstly, thank you, Peter, for having me on. And I want to say thank you to Samara for doing that. That's incredibly important, and that's the way in which the public become aware of these matters. Now, what do I think of this? I don't want to speak regarding what the intentions of that young man were. As you know, these people kind of, if he is an extremist, extremists tend to be extremely litigious in a sense. But assuming that from the surface, what it seemed like to me, it seems like he's not very educated.
He said himself, I'm not too educated on the history, for example.
That reminds me of a lot of fellow extremists I had and the kinds of people these extremist recruiters go for. Now, it might potentially be true that he thinks, oh, it was just the declaration of faith on a black flag, right? I know there are many people in the Muslim community whom extremists manage to convince them that that is the case. But if that is the case with this kid, there's going to be people around him that do know what it's about, that are handing him the flag and are inculcating him into this ideology. Now, the first question I have is, why is this being allowed to happen openly, right? This shouldn't be allowed in Westminster. Secondly, what are we doing both as a Muslim community, but also as British society, to stop people from becoming radicalized, whether that be religious ideology or non-religious ideology, whether that be Islamist extremism or whatever other form of extremism. We definitely need to be doing more. We cannot be burying our heads in the sand, because essentially this problem might become a first-order security threat. And once that happens, we're not going to be a united kingdom, we're going to be a disunited kingdom.
How did you turn away from extremism? How difficult was that, Sahil?
Honestly, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and I doubt I'll ever do anything harder than that. To give you some context, my fellow former extremist friends said to me when I de-radicalized, how did you, of all of us, de-radicalize? I mean, they didn't see as de-radicalization, but you know what I mean. How did you, of all of us, change your mind? You were the one out of all of us who believed in it the most. Now, the way in which I did it was through a high degree of introspection. No one from the outside kind of intervened, but thankfully, I think I had the emotional and mental resilience and also kind of capacity to be able to get myself out.
Were you at a stage where you would have attacked people, perhaps worn a suicide vest for your cause?
This is always difficult to say, but yes, I was so extreme at one point that I would have been willing to consider violence. But the thing is, Peter, when you are radicalized in this kind of mindset, you don't really tend to think of the victims of what you're potentially considering. It's only once, and if you start thinking about the victims, that your kind of emotional, moral compass kind of kicks in. And once I started thinking about, oh my God, there will be innocent people who will be involved in this, who will be the victim of what I'm horrifically thinking about doing, that was when I just thought, this isn't for me.
You're now head of insights for Islamist extremism at Resilience in Unity. It works to amplify the voices of those with experience of terrorism and extremism to act as a counter-narrative against radicalisation. Just in as much as you can, I know a lot of it's secret, but presumably you do what you can to turn people away from this. Just in as much as you can, tell us how you do that.
So we work, it's a coalition of victims of extremism and former extremists. So half my colleagues are victims of terrorism. And what we essentially do is do outreach work in the community. We'll also deliver training to de-radicalization professionals. We also kind of work with government. We are the secretariat of the all-party parliamentary group on terrorism and security. So we do a lot of work. But one thing I will say is if this young man is watching this segment, please reach out to us. Please reach out to me. If you have any doubts, if in fact anyone has any doubts about this Islamist ideology that they're being inculcated into, please contact me. They're going to say to you that those doubts are because the West is poisoning your mind. That's rubbish. It's actually your inherent kind of nature. It's your moral compass that's speaking out. And please reach out.
How big is the problem, do you think, Sahil, from your perspective? How prevalent is all of this? How worried should we be?
Honestly, and I always kind of try to give a nuanced answer to this. I think that it's far more prevalent than the average general member of the public and maybe even the average politician thinks. But also at the same time, I don't think it's as prevalent and as severe as maybe some on the far right. And when I say far right, I mean neo-Nazism. People think on that end of things. So I think it's kind of more severe than we kind of think on average, but it's not as bad as some people make out.
Thank you very much, Sahil Ahmed there, former Islamic extremist. He now works to turn people away from the life he once led. He hasn't spent any time in prison. He hasn't broken the law. We wouldn't have him on the show if he had. So thank you to him. 03444991000 for your reaction to that. Haley says, the pro-Palestinian who the lovely Samara interviewed, he says he wants their country back. Well, we want ours back too, so just go. Haley in Surrey says, great show as always. Why is it being made so difficult? They're coming in illegally, so should be stopped before they get here, legally or otherwise. Our useless Prime Minister says, just let's get everyone in regardless of the effect on our places and people. They need to grow a pair and get really tough, if only for a short time, so they realise that they won't get in, and that should stop them. Seriously, I've never felt so let down. Starmer is the most racist person ever. I'm sure Keir Starmer would deny that he's a racist, but ever against the British people and for everyone else. I'm fuming, says Haley in Surrey. David in Cheshire, easy way to aid deportation. First stop all legal aid, I should say. for illegals, then make all human rights lawyers sign a sponsorship deal for any illegal immigrant they represent if they believe in their bleeding heart cause. They won't mind paying for them once they represent them. While we have Richard Hermer, Lord Hermer and Starmer at the top of their respective trees, this country has no chance. Lots more to discuss between now and 1 o'clock. Get your call in 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Unfortunately, Messy Nigel has a downside. You know, when he's challenged on something where he doesn't actually know the answer or he hasn't thought about the numerical consequences of a particular policy, he comes out with, "I've no idea," or "That's an irrelevant question." He gets a bit stroppy, which actually covers up the fact that he hasn't necessarily done his homework and his preparation before a given interview.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
The biggest story in the world right now is, of course, what is happening in Gaza. There is a ceasefire there. It's moving in the direction of getting the hostages back in the next couple of days. I spoke to the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Peter Cardwell, about that a bit earlier. Let's remind ourselves what she said.
Keir Starmer's been a national embarrassment and a national disgrace on this whole issue. There's nothing that he can claim credit for when it comes to what we're seeing in the Middle East. I think, Peter, let's just take a step back, first of all. We're at the very early stages of this peace agreement, only phase one, where we will see hostages being released, having been held in brutal captivity for over 730 days. Keir Starmer has not contributed to their release whatsoever. He was too busy being following foreign policy advice from his backbenchers and driving this whole two-state recognition issue, rather than actually working with any country or government in the region, or even working alongside the United States of America to find a peaceful solution to this situation. So I think it's just extraordinary for a government minister to make that type of claim and assertion.
The Shadow Foreign Secretary, Peter Cardwell, there speaking about Keir Starmer. He has said that he should take some credit for the Gaza deal. That's something that Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, has been saying this morning as well. She also says Hamas should not be involved in the reconstruction of Gaza. This is what she told Sky News earlier.
We are clear that a terrorist organisation like Hamas, that was responsible for the most deadly atrocity, the largest killing of Jews since the Holocaust, can have no part in the reconstruction of Gaza or in a future Palestinian state. But that is not just the view of our government, that is the view of Arab states as well.
What about the view of the Palestinians, the Gazans themselves? They may decide they want Hamas.
I'm afraid when you look at the appalling atrocities of the 7th of October, there can be absolutely no place for a vile terrorist group like Hamas.
Thanks to Bill in Telford as well. He says, fantastic show, Peter. When we are discussing anti-Semitism, perhaps we need to discuss primarily which cultural demographic is the main perpetrator of this. Simply talking about anti-Semitism isn't enough. There are marginalised sectors of our society responsible for this. Name and shame. Bill, you're absolutely right, but there is polling that shows that 1 in 5 people, not just Muslims, loads of people who think, and it's not all Muslims are anti-Semitic, definitely not, but there are 1 in 5 people in this country who think some level of anti-Semitism is acceptable. Bridget Phillipson spoke about anti-Semitism to Sky News this morning too.
You have to deal with the anti-Semitism, yes you do, and universities have disciplinary processes and should use those processes to take action. But education is important because we know that anti-Semitism, other forms of hatred will also thrive where there is ignorance, where there is misinformation, and where we allow anti-Semitic
So would you
tropes
like
to go
university
unchallenged.
authorities to put everybody through some form of training, is a question I'm
I
asking.
think universities have responsibilities as employers, and also they have responsibilities to their students to make sure that people understand what anti-Semitism is and take action against it.
Rosa in Leeds has been in touch and says, I'm a British Jew who has had enough of this anti-Semitic government that not only allows anti-Semitism to fester, but its lack of action encourages and emboldens it. Our government and institutions have let us down to the extent that I, along with many others within the Jewish community, have bought our one-way tickets to Israel. What an embarrassment this government has brought on our once great nation. Rob in London, I used to like and respect Priti Patel, that is until she became Home Secretary and let the whole country down. Big talk and little action from her and her government on migration. Sorry, but I can't trust the Tories again. It's reform for me now. Samantha says if the people of Gaza elected another government that, like Hamas, is calling for the eradication of all Jews, would that then give Israel the right to wage an all-out war? Carl in Cornwall's also been in touch on the flag, the ISIS flag that Samara was reporting on there. Hi Peter, great show. The man carrying the ISIS flag said he was not completely educated in the history of Arab and Jewish conflict. Let me educate him. There's never ever been an independent nation called Palestine. In the last 2,000 years that this area called Palestine existed under various empires, all people, Arabs, Jews, Druze, Muslims, Christians and anyone else were called Palestinians. It's the greatest lie of modern times that there's an indigenous Arab Palestinian people and so many have suffered because of it. Sally has been in touch with a voice note.
Oh my goodness, Starmer is just beyond belief. He cannot stay in this country for one moment more than he has to because he cannot solve the problems that we have here. And the fact that he dares go to Egypt after all the chaos he has caused, it's beyond belief. I absolutely loathe the man and I despair of what's coming to this country. Sally, Lincolnshire.
Sally, thank you for that. Let's hear from Sharon.
Hi Peter, it's Sharon from Yorkshire. We're just out in Warsaw at the minute, and it's so safe. Everybody's walking about. We're off tomorrow to Auschwitz, so it's quite relevant to what you're speaking about today. But there is not one migrant about here. Nobody's hanging about. It's just really lovely and pleasant. Good show, Peter. Sharon from Yorkshire.
Sharon, thanks for your message. I hope you have a lovely trip in Poland there. Thanks to Margaret in Birmingham, who says, great interview with Priti Patel. She's so right. Starmer is a total embarrassment. He should not be going to Egypt. Just grandstanding yet again, a weak and incompetent leader, says Margaret. Mark in Croydon, morning Peter, the issue with the UK in a nutshell. That video of the young man with the ISIS flag says it all. I suspect he and his family are enjoying all the benefits of a tolerant UK society, and that's what you get. Lizzie in Telford says that seemingly innocent through ignorant lad who Samara interviewed is the most serious type of protester. He and his friends are growing up under the veil of assumed righteousness, brackets, indoctrination. Keep eyes on the young, they are our future leaders, says Lizzie in Telford. And Margaret says, well done to Samara, who also says that she enjoyed my story about Chesney Hawkes this week. I spoke to Jeremy about that, about meeting Chesney Hawkes. It was wonderful. Now, let's speak to Keith in Huddersfield. Keith has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Keith, you're on the air. What would you like to say?
Right. Firstly, I'd like to say good morning. Anyway, good morning, Peter.
Hi there.
I believe in free speech.
Yep.
You know, we can't take that away from the people of this country. But what I don't believe in is when you get certain people who say it's free speech going out with flags, saying they want to decimate a country some miles away, things like that. They keep arresting them, but our government doesn't tell us what they've done to them. Right? From my point of view, when they arrest them, if they arrest a load of people, students, which a lot of them will have visas to be here, that visa should be, taken away. And
deported, yeah.
Regarding our own people who are supporting that, if they want to support that, by all means do it, but without all these conflicts of things. They should be fined a minimum of £2,000 and the names should be released to the public.
Yeah.
Because companies are employing some of these people, right? And they're earning good money probably, and all they're doing is creating problems for this country. And I think until we get a Prime Minister that's prepared to look after the people of this country, we're on a hiding to nothing.
Okay, well, listen, thanks for your thoughts there. I really appreciate that. That's Keith in Huddersfield. Just before the end of the programme, let's fit in Martin in Cambridge. He's also given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Just a few minutes left, Martin, but what would you like to say? You're very welcome.
Yeah, I just want to encapsulate what everybody's been saying, really. I mean, we all know that this government has to go. And they know that this is probably the last Labour government we will see in probably 20 years. And I think they're doing a scorched earth policy. And what I mean by that is that if you notice the rhetoric, they got rid of the European Scrutiny Committee. They're saying that the immigration problem is blamed on, we left the Dublin Convention. Everything is tilting towards the EU and all this kind of stuff. At the next, what do you call it, when she does the tax thing in November, the budget, they're going to blame Farage, supposedly, on us leaving the European Union. Trust me on this, Peter. He will call an election in May next year because he doesn't want to be decimated in Wales, right? And he's going to.
You think the election is coming on the same day as the Welsh, Scottish, and local elections?
Because he doesn't want to be decimated. He knows he's going out of power and he doesn't want to get booted out. And what he's going to do is going to do a rejoin ticket to rejoin the European Union. He's going to offer a referendum.
Wow.
So he can get all the all the Greens, all the Liberals.
That's quite the prediction, Martin. We'll see what happens. Listen, thanks for your thoughts. I really appreciate that. We'll see if that happens. Just a word about next weekend shows. I should say Jeremy's doing Drive on Thursday, so he's doing Drive Monday to Thursday. I'll be back on Friday with Drive, and then I'll be here on Wednesday as well with Julia for Prime Minister's Questions coverage. Parliament is back. Next weekend, bumper weekend, already been planned by Chris, the producer. Emily Thornbury joining me next Saturday. Also Penny Mordaunt, she has a new book out, the former Defence Secretary. She's going to be joining us, both of them, on Saturday. Ralph Scholhammer, your favourite guest ever, will be here in the studio on Sunday for a whole half an hour. We can talk to him about anything at all, cultural issues, things to do with foreign affairs, the Middle East as well. Ralph is going to be live in the studio. He's a professor at Webster University in Vienna, and I think I can safely say our most popular guest ever, so he will be back in the studio next weekend. Loads to discuss this week, of course, on the